Honey, I don't know. Thank you for reading this. But this is one of those conversations I've just for like a whole year. You're a very busy person. Today you'll tell us why you're that busy. Usually I like people to introduce themselves, right? Yeah, so I don't get anything wrong or I don't give them titles they do not want. So I'll give you that courtesy to introduce yourself to our. We actually have up to like 15,000 listeners on Spotify and about 2,000 on YouTube. YouTube is growing because our watch time, our conversations are long and people have short. They don't want to give long things much attention. But the people that listen audio crazy. They really go out to listen to the podcast. So it's something, right?
That's on Spotify, not
Spotify, Apple, so all of that together, all the audio streams.
Yes. All right. Okay. Hi, Mark. Yes, so my name is Asmahaney Saad. I am a lawyer, or what we call an advocate, because I do practice law in courts sometimes, rarely.
Oh, yeah.
So that's where we get the title of advocate. I'm also a business leader. I do support businesses in terms of their leadership and governance spaces. I'm a mother of 2 awesome boys, and I foster a daughter as well, so 3 children. I'm a wife of 1 man, 1 husband, and to specify a man.
Clear.
Yes.
This you have
I'm
to
a
specify.
mentor. I'm very passionate about sharing my life story because I have got to understand the things I've gone through are not just for me, but there's a lot that I can do to shape or help other people who are walking the same journey. So I'm a mentor and I'm very passionate about it. But I'm also a mentee. I have people who mentor me. So big up to them who have really helped me also in this journey. I'm a leader, I'm a Christian leader as well. I'm a minister in my church. I also do a lot of discipleship and growing people in faith, because that has been one of the, not even one, but it is the greatest pillar of my life that has actually brought me here where I am, that you could want to even have a conversation with me in my ordinary self. What else? Yeah, I'm a Rotarian as well. I love the causes that run with Rotary. And also I engage a lot with my community where I live.
Where do you live?
I live in Tinda.
Oh, I was born in Tinda.
Same Pagala zone.
Okay.
My chairman really likes me because in as much as I am, and I'll put it in quite busy and what, I make time to go for LC meetings.
Are you just in for political?
I am not, no political ambition at all, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
So I just want to be involved with my community because I feel and I believe that is home. So I sit in an LC meeting with everyone else. I usually want to keep quiet because when people see you come in, they feel that, oh, the English people have entered. So I don't say much. I listen. I give of myself. Right now, we are working on some bylaws for our area. And yeah, I'm supporting the LC chairman in crafting those. And it really gives me so much fulfillment when I do those things.
Some sense of purpose for your community.
Yeah, for my community. Yeah, so yeah, and I'm a daughter, of course, I'm a child. I have also me and my mommy and daddy, they're alive, thank God.
That's really a blessing.
Yeah. To grow. That's really me in a nutshell.
That's amazing. So let's start there. The political ambition. Usually lawyers really, that is always like the end goal, right? Most of the ones.
The end goal.
Okay, the ones that are not really like actual salespeople that are brokering deals go for political office. Now, for someone like you who has big sense of community, you get purpose from that. Why don't you want to? And you're a lawyer, like you understand the law, really. You must know that in our country there's so many broken systems, right? Things you could fix if you have the power. So why don't you want to?
Well, I think it's one of those things. maybe saying that if you have the power, the way I see, and this is just my observation, I could be wrong, and I don't want to form judgment or, give an expert opinion. But from where I sit, politics, the way it's running, it's not the politics I believe in. First of all, it has become so commercialized. It's actually a commodity right now.
Yeah.
Even people campaigning for simple things like LC, for example, when we're running our LC campaigns, people are making so much demand on these leaders. And so you find that people who could actually lead, like me, I think, yeah, you're right. I can go, I can debate laws, I can read laws, I can draft them, I can shape out a governance system, I can monitor it, I can inspire people to have a buy-in in the change that we want to see, because change to happen, it has to, it has to serve purpose. People have to have a buy-in. But where I stand, and I don't want to say all hope is lost, because I'm such a positive person. I'm a hopeful believer. But where I stand right now, it's one of those things that even if you went in, I see so many people who are so passionate about the things, because this is not me, it's not a lonesome journey. You sit with people and you see you have the same mindset. And sometimes they go in there and things just become so different. And for me, one of the biggest pain, or when I see things, for me, it's just the governing. I think we have abilities to govern, but we have failed to govern. And the result of that is poverty. When I look around, you just see there's so much need, yet there is so much potential in our country.
People keep saying that.
I'll just give you a simple example. We are a country where today, I'll just throw like some passion seeds or tomatoes, make a little backyard compound, and 2-3 days later, things are sprouting. I haven't put fertilizer. I mean,
Yeah, but also these days there's that conversation on agriculture where most of the people that keep saying, once you invest in poultry or in piggery or whatever, it's not as look, you don't get back you don't reap what you sow from that. So the economies of scale don't also support that. So there's that. Maybe because of the taxing thing, you are in best position to actually talk on or change. See, how do you feel about that? The fact that things don't work, even though they should work, right? The soil, the fertile, people are really hardworking. I don't like to call people lazy in Uganda. Like me, all I've seen my dad do is wake up and work all the time. But he's just an average person. Yeah. There's all that. So that at the back of my mind is maybe because of the country I'm into. There are no businesses that spiral out like Facebook or something. Yeah. So things don't work even when they are supposed to work.
Well, I think it's here and there. Perhaps if it was like more sophisticated statistics would help. But I'll just give you my view and my experience. Personally, I wanted a side hustle at some point in time, and everyone was talking about farming, agriculture, and things like that. So I had a friend of mine who had done paper, that hot paper, and they said they were exporting it to Europe.
Yeah.
And I had my car land somewhere. My car's averagely good land, which I also bought because it's cool, or it's part of our system. Once you have some little savings, putting
land is something you have to. But real estate is cool.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, so I got into it. No knowledge, no research, nothing. But I did it because it made sense at that time. I had some money aside and I was like, okay. And this person had really convinced me, no, you do it, collect paper, to for Europe, boxes, those
exactly
those things give you. So I'm like excited. It tells me if it's 1 acre, you can make like 6 million. If you have 2 acres, I tell you have a lot of land. One season like this, million coming. I'm like, what?
I mean, this may break through.
Hit a mile.
Yeah.
So I get into it. So personally, I think the most thing I did in research, which was good, which he told me something, he told me, let's do soil tests. So we get someone from Kawanda, the guy comes, picks soil samples, goes and does tests, brings them. I didn't even read through them. So it was just one of those tick that box thing. And when he said soil test, I was like, this guy is so cool. We haven't
Testing the soil.
So so we started the project. And I love projects. I like doing things like from the ground up. I love it. So it just gave me purpose for that season. So we brought seeds from Kawanda. You told me did. Now, this is what I feel is the problem where you're saying things don't work.
Yeah.
I didn't have the actual research. I didn't understand the world around red pepper, this hot pepper. Actually, it was hot pepper. I didn't understand the market. Okay, so when I'm ready for harvest, what do I do?
What's next?
I didn't
So
understand.
there was no plan, right?
There was no plan.
Okay.
There was no full value chain. Who is going to offtake? If I'm going, what do I need? What's the quality? The details.
Yes.
So I did it like a typical Ugandan. And I'm sure I don't want to be in it from Uganda. And most people, when they just jump at opportunity.
Yeah, but I can put that on Ugandans. My experience having conversations with people. I've had conversations with whites, typically. And usually when you pose the question, hey, how do you feel about working in Uganda? It's that. Ugandans, the work is there, people are brilliant, but there's no plan. People don't plan for their businesses.
So it hit me. So we did the paper, but now when the reality started hitting, I couldn't even sustain the passion anymore. The demands, there is no water. Over what? It's money, they're calling you all the time, weekends, to pesticides, So you're now just like spending, putting in money. So finally, the paper, and actually even what we planted is not all that came out. And then now time to harvest come. The guy starts giving me stories. Over now, Europe, which those stories. We get to harvest. I don't have a market. I am stuck with these bags. It's not even packed the way it should be. And the hot pepper is so sensitive. You keep it there 3-4 days, it just starts going bad. Yeah. So that was the end of my sad story. I never exported. So
everything went bad.
Most of it. I just told the guys who were there, you know what? I just got so fed up. So, so frustrated. I think that's the right
and drained.
Drained because I had lost a lot of money. And so, but I learned a lot from that. I always tell when at work my people, I say, there are some lessons that, yes, they're expensive, they're painful, but if you don't go through them in that experimental or experiential, no one can ever, even if at that time Mark you came and told me, don't do hot pepper when you don't have the experience, I'll be like, that guy is a hater. I'm going to progress, but it is what it is. So now from there I learned, no matter how good, whether you come and know some other poultry deal or what, I just have to educate myself.
Right.
Secondly, I have to make the time because I was doing phone farming. I don't know, during that season, I stepped there like once or twice. So everything was on phone. They call me at work. I'm busy at work. It was supposed to be a weekend gig. I even failed to make those weekends to go there. So the guys were taking advantage. For them, they were just seeing opportunity to make money. So I just learned the time. Everything needs time for it to work out. It needs a process. You need to understand it. Whatever is coming, the output, you need to know how we're going to make use of this output. Markets, understanding the whole exports, industry. Even if I just had middlemen who are going to buy and export, just understand the full value chain dynamic. I'm sure it would have been a good hustle.
Do you feel like right now the side hustles we are supposed to do are supposed to be related to our places instead? Because then when will you ever get time to put time into, you have to read, the thing that stopped me from doing law was the fact that we had to read so many things, but my parents were very convinced I was going to be a lawyer. I used to argue everything at work. When I was growing up, they were very convinced that if you don't become a lawyer, you just wasted our time.
You have no future.
But the reading is what got me off, right? So do you feel like we have to do things in line with what our professions are doing? Because then again, basic Hillary tweet, to succeed, you have to have other sources of income, whatnot. That. How do you get other sources of income? to supplement what you're doing? Or do I have to really go do an MBA, have a PhD, and become a partner like you to get big bags?
You don't have a PhD. No, but that's a very excellent question, I must say. I don't know where I am. I want side hustle.
Okay.
But I've realized the whole side hustle thing. You don't have to do a side hustle where you know you're not going to be present. At least that's the lesson I learned. And there are other ways that you can side hustle. There's what they call passive income. Right now, because all my time, at least most of my mind and my time is focused on what I'm doing as a lawyer, what I'm doing as a partner, what I'm doing as a business leader. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of minding, So even if I was said today, let me have a side hustle of a restaurant, it wouldn't work out. Because even those things, we look at them as side hustles, but they are also actual investments. They're business. You're going to put in money. Resources are going in there. So what I always tell people is that not everyone, by the way, is an entrepreneur. But if everyone can be an investor. Everyone can invest.
How do you invest in something?
Now,
and you're not an entrepreneur. Yeah. Okay.
This is the issue. Most people think for me to own a business, I have to be, let me say, the manager, the typical enterprising business.
Yeah.
But I could actually, Mark, you could present to me an idea or a business that you're already doing and it's working out. And I see the numbers. That's the research I'm talking about. I see it. You make for me the projections. I see it. You say, you know what? I want to expand my business. I need 100 million. I'm raising capital. If I see value in your business and I have my car 20 miles somewhere, instead of me going and competing with Mark, because Mark can do podcasts and let me also go buy equipment and stuff, which is the typical Ugandan market. And
I've just experienced that in my field. I went to pitch an idea to someone and I was like, no, I'm going to buy my own equipment. I'm like, but now the equipment comes with the expertise to it. It comes with so much.
Feel the passion.
Exactly.
The 1,000 hours, of which maybe you've so far done like 300. I don't have time to even make 100 of those in media world. So what I would do, I would invest in your business. I throw in the 20 million. I look at the numbers. And remember, investment also needs patience. The other thing that I've noticed is kagwidao. And that's why when we're enterprising, we are not patient with what we're enterprising. Because enterprising is a process. When you read the stories of the people we admire now, Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, all these people, when you get to understand what they went through even before they hit their first $1,000, it was years.
Yeah.
But for us, we have this mindset, and maybe it's the world we live in now. Everything is instant. Instagram, take a picture, it's right now, if you're hungry, I can just be like, Mark, pause, let me go on Jumia, I order for my food, in 10 minutes it's here.
Yeah.
So it kind of shapes this fallacy that everything should be instant. If I've put 20 million in Mark's business, 3 months later, I'm calling you, Mark, now what is the percentage I'm going to be? You understand? But investment takes time.
And trust. So how do you build that trust to invest in something? How do you build that trust? Because money here is very far-fetched to make, right? So getting like 20 million and giving it to me takes a lot of trust. Just for you to settle at home and be like, you know what? Because it's a business. I could fail. Genuinely. Things I could try and expand, parent here and there, and things just fail. So the trust, you as a business leader, how do you instill that in
people? So it's one of those things, like I said, you wouldn't just sell to me your idea by word of mouth. I need to see it. What does it look like on paper? Because you must come, like you said, the problem without planning. You must come from somewhere. And here, what I'm saying is just implementation. But there is a vision.
True.
There is a mission written somewhere. There is a dream. There's an aspiration. There's a walk you want to walk 3-5 years. Those are the things that I would look at to invest in you. And from there, what I'm reading must also kind of resonate with what I'm saying. And if it's not, then I can have the right questions to ask you. Secondly, the issue about trust. Yeah, not everyone. I mean, people invest in stock in the stock market. True. In equities. A lot of people bought shares there in MTN. Do you think they trust or they know who are even the directors of MTN? But that's an investor's mindset. I look at this business, I can make my predictions, I can go in and go out. So I think sometimes, especially for people who have jobs and one side hustle, it is good now to wear an investor's mindset. So that then you can support people who can actually do businesses and grow them. You invest. how do investors make money? You make money from profits, dividends, but then the business has to run its cycle. So the issue of trust, yes, because sometimes we want to invest in our friends, people we know, businesses, so it becomes a bit disruptive at times. But if you're a real investor, I mean, I don't need to know you, Mark, or today if Javas did an IPO, how many people do you think would want to throw in their money and take a piece of Javas? Because they see. So sometimes it comes from what people can see, and then what is on paper, and then what is your growth plan, and then it's people can invest. So many people tell me, I want to do my side hustle. In the evening, I want to do this, and they have a job. Most definitely, you see that it affects their performance at work. Or they just get frustrated, they start blaming everything on the job. But you want to multiply yourself in ways that you can't humanly possibly do. So I think it's time. And investment, maybe investment is such a big word. People imagine investment and they think,
Then think about risk.
And and risk is very important. And that's also the issue about trust, where I'm talking about where I wanted to bring in risk as well. I mean, risk is risk. The higher the
How
risk.
do you feel yourself to start risking? I feel like it's like an inborn thing. If you've not been risking with your life and you've been really
every time you're playing safe, then you'll always be the kind of safe you'll have it.
But I feel like some people have it right that way, right?
In playing it safe.
Yeah.
Yes. And it works for them. And so it also takes you knowing who you are.
Okay.
What do you want?
Yeah.
Because you can't be a person who wants to play it safe all the time and then you want to risk in a venture. I'll give you an example like oil and gas. People who invest in oil and gas business know that when we're going to explore, if we don't find the oil, it's a loss. Like even now, our Ugandan exploration system is structured, which is the standard practice everywhere. You come as an investor, you go bring your equipment, your knowledge. It's intense, capital intensive, hundreds and thousands. I mean, not even hundreds, but millions and millions of dollars are invested in that ground. But once the drill hits those meters down and there is no commercial viable oil, it could be there, but it's not commercial.
It's just...
And that's where people say we found a dry well. You put out your equipment, cover up properly, environmental issues, pack your bags and go. But that day you hit that oil, my friend,
you are in gold.
You hit the hotels and shells of this world. So again, there are people who, and you can see their success story. It's all about risk. And with risk, of course, sometimes the risk can materialize and people lose everything, and they start from scratch. And then they share the stories. And for you, when you see them, they are in bitala,
Glamour.
It's glamour. Yeah. And you want that glamour, but you're not ready to understand what it takes to get there. So risk is good. There is acceptable risk, calculated risk, but everything in life has a risk. So I don't think there's someone who can sit there and say, for me, I want a risk-free life. You wake up in the morning, either you're going to do a boda or a car and get to work. There's a risk there.
Big risk.
Even when we go to order for food, there's a risk. What if this food is not good? So everything around us has a risk. But I think it's how we then digest it into these decisions that we have to make,
Yeah.
So my take here is that really the thing that you're saying, Ugandans, things don't work, at least from my perspective, I've learned now that because now I'm a business owner, I run a law firm, I tried enterprising, starting from scratch. It didn't really work for me. So I know I might not be an entrepreneur at that level, but I know I can own business. I understand how to run a business. I also know I can invest. So for me, my facets now are owning business, running business, and investing. And investing in what? I might say invest and you think, man, this chick has simple things, financial instruments, which are bit safe. I will invest. I buy shares when they're available. I will invest in real estate.
Do you invest in government bonds?
Yeah, I do. Okay. I do. They're safe and the interest also, because now government is really, really in need of money.
But how can I trust that now that you're a lawyer? See, I have always thought about investing in the bonds, but with political instability, right? I do not know who's going to be the next president in 2026. It's not clear, even if it's clear, but it's not clear. So when I invest in government bonds, how sure will I be that the next
yourself.
government.
Because you're not lending the president or the government per se, you're lending the sovereign.
Okay.
And sovereigns, it's hard, no matter what political status it is, as long as you have your paper, the government will always owe you. And so that's why some people prefer to invest in those kinds of things. That's why they call them government papers. Have that form of security because you have lent to the government, not a specific regime or whatever it is, So whatever happens, even with the instabilities and economic, whatever happens, when the time to pay you comes, there'll always be a Minister of Finance.
Yes.
There'll always be a Minister of Finance. There'll always be the Bank of Uganda. There'll always be that system, and you will call on your money at that rate that you bought that. Maybe the risk I can say there is maybe if there has been devaluation, currency devaluation, maybe at the time you are expecting, but at the end of the day, you will still get.
Now, like we have the World Bank stepping back to don't give us money. Don't you think we'll face like current currency devaluation?
No, not devaluation per se. I think what that caused, or what we saw actually when that statement came out, was it brings a lot of uncertainty, especially in our foreign exchange market. And the less foreign exchange we have, the more it becomes expensive to access it. So the shilling kind of starts to lose value.
Yeah.
Because the foreign exchange is not. So that's what really happens. Yeah, and yes, it can cause you a risk. I'm not an economist or a money person, but at least from the little I understand, that's what can happen. So you need a lot of shillings, a lot of your own currency to access the foreign currency. But so
that means the government just has to print more money.
It in a way, but that could only work also if you have need for foreign currency. You see, it only works when those two are interacting. But if you're dealing with your own shilling economy, you're buying from the supermarket, you're doing this, the impact might not be as much.
Yeah.
If you're someone who is into importation, we use the dollar and things like that, then you can feel it. But also what it can do sometimes, especially things that we import, if the dollar goes up, the pricing of course changes. That's why you see when we had the Ukraine-Russian issue, when it happened, and we had a little instability in production of oil, the pricing of oil went up. You remember that time a liter was like...
I can push this.
No, fine. A liter was like at 10,000. You remember?
Yeah.
So yeah, we're still using our shilling, but access to the oil, there was a lot of curtailing happening, Ukraine, Russia, all that geopolitics came in. And so that's what happened. But of course, it's always a risk, like I said.
Tell me about your work as an advisor on the Petroleum Fund.
The Petroleum Fund. Okay, so it's very interesting. First of all, it's
Okay, let me first go back before you give me like your opinion on that. I told you Hillary was my mentor. So when was it right after COVID, right? So these are the conversations Hillary used to tell me that get yourself ready for oil and gas, everything. We're doing some work at the apartments, so he used to tell me, even if all you have to do is to just organize households, make sure that English speaking, I'm going to bring expatriates and whatnot, they're going to be staying, there's going to be a lot of money. But things somehow just became funny. So now I have you to give me like a broad picture to understand the oil and gas industry in Uganda. Yeah.
Okay. First of all, the oil and gas industry is very volatile. Very, very volatile. Because it's a global commodity. So the forces of demand play a lot. But then also remember we have things like OPEC, those clusters where people they set price. So it's very volatile. It's very sophisticated in a way. It's curtailed, for lack of a better word. People will set price and globally you'll be affected, whether you're part of OPEC or you're not.
Yeah.
So in a nutshell, I hope I haven't complicated it, but
I understand that.
I want to kind of get like a similar, maybe like even the other, maybe minerals, gold.
Yeah.
If you kind of read
Yes.
like the gold market,
Yeah.
most times commodities, metals, they have that kind of rhythm and pattern. But for Uganda's story, so we've been in this thing, by the way, for a long time. And most times I tell people this, they get shocked. Like our discoveries were made like in the early 30s. I think not even 30s, like even when we moved to colonial times, people actually saw oil in the Alberta, in the colonialists. But at that time, they felt like it was not, we are not ready for it. And for them, their focus for our East African basin was more agriculture. So then they were like, no, let's just leave this. It's not so, let's focus on agriculture. So if you remember cotton, coffee, these cash crops, they came in, and that's what was giving people cash, and even then also the biggest benefit.
Quick one, do you think agriculture is still our backbone?
100%.
Okay.
1,000,000%. Uganda is a food basket. You can't be a country where you just throw things and they grant. That is not your blessing.
But how much food do we export out? How much food really brings in taxes? I feel like
that's the problem. We have diversified, we have lost focus. Of course, now even things when other sectors come in, they're meant to be support sectors for the main sector, which is agriculture. Tourism comes into again. They're catalyzers, they are support systems, but the main focus is agriculture. So the moment we get that into our system, even when you look at budgetary support, when government is allocating money and things like that, if that can be really, really, and agriculture, moving from subsistence to more of commercial agriculture. Because as Uganda, you can be shocked how much food we import.
Exactly. So that was going to be my worry now. Like, even when you go to just a random supermarket,
we import a lot because we haven't got into commercialization. So the food that we produce cannot even feed us as a country. It's so little. So what we import is meant to supplement because we have not focused on agriculture.
But that's the trend with Uganda, right? When you look at the Kasita group, it's full of the informal sector, the guys who actually have the most money, the communities, even just our normal communities. The guy that has the biggest house, there's a big chance he's not like a really graduate. He's not having a big thing. It's just the informal, then there's so much informal business. Yeah, that's how we survive, guys.
Trade.
Yeah, like that. Isn't that like a thing?
Shockingly, I'll tell you, the informal sector is biggest.
Exactly.
It's us who are like formal. These days they call us the Luzungu people.
The Luzungu people.
We are, I think, when you look at our GDP, what we contribute even to the gross domestic produce or what the country grosses in a year, it's so little.
Okay.
Just even employment. Can you believe out of the employment workforce, 80% of the employment workforce is informal?
Wow.
Only 20%. I got these numbers from the Ministry of Labor. Only 20% of the workforce is in the formal system.
And most of this 20% is exported, right? Because the guys who really make so much money are either being outsourced.
Count export labor, which also has a very big
informal sector. Yeah.
Now, even when you look at the formal sector, the jobs that are available. I'll just give you an interesting statistic. We've just finalized with our annual law conference, but what has come out clearly, the Law Development Center, which is what trains people to become advocates, almost releases 1,000 trained lawyers ready to be advocates every year, annually. There are about 600 law firms throughout the whole country.
Oh my God. That makes the most unemployable course there is.
Now, you're releasing 1,000. There's 600 law firms.
Oh.
But remember, there are already people in this workforce. These are new. And so, where is everyone going? So the numbers don't add up.
Oh, wow. That's so sad.
Yeah.
How did you make it out to become in this type of globe?
Well, I mean, by the time I started my career, we were not at 45 million. So maybe.
Just got you.
And
Just
also
time.
for this thing, you see some of us, to see us there, okay, we are walking a certain journey, but it has a lot to do with timing, when you were born, more opportunity, the work you've put in. So there's nothing given. So
How
there's
much
nothing
work do you think you have put in to become a partner? And you don't have to like say like things you've done, like, but compared to the average to how we're scaling, because two things, yeah. I speak to CEOs, sometimes they're complaining about the skills people have, and they're complaining about Gen Zs and their work ethic.
Yeah.
But then you're the people that have mentored us to become who we are, right? We're like children, we copy from our elders. So if we're lazy, it means you guys were like twice as lazy.
No way.
That's how I think about it. Do you believe Gen Zs are lazy people? Do you believe our work ethic is not as much as you guys? But yes, this also will then answer the question. How much work have you put in? Like, do you really feel like, have you put in the work, or does it go back to that position very well, good timing, lucky enough, you could be a very friendly person, you could be bringing business because you're very well connected. That's a thing. I think I possess something like that. I somehow have a big source of network, right? So I have access to so many things. So that's a plus. Some people my age don't have the access I have, but they're probably smarter than me.
But what have you taken to get that network? You didn't just wake up in the morning and you have a network. Just think through it.
So most of the times, like, it's hard, but I want to know from you, like, how would you quantify the work you put in to become a partner?
I think it's...
And what does it take, like, generally? Like,
yeah. I think it's okay. In terms of quantifying it, well, I'll just say it's a lot of work. But it's not work that I look at and I'm like, oh my God, it's all me. I have put in all this work. Like you say, there's so many other factors that come into play. But also, how are you able to use those things to advance yourself? Because sometimes you find people, I'm not different than people who are noted partners or other lawyers. Like, I'm not any different. And you might find we've all gone through the same things. But like you rightfully said, opportunity. How do you take on opportunity? Courage, which is not, I cannot quantify that. Skills, networks, they also come into play other than just your book knowledge, your experience and your expertise. There are also things that contribute. But for me, it's a journey that has been shaped in different walks of my career. So when I started off, I wasn't even in the legal practice. I started off as in-house. So typically in the typical corporate world, the company lawyer.
Yeah.
And whilst I was there, of course I was learning, but it's very limited, if I can say. You'll just do the company work. You won't be able to explore other things, So for example, if it's a telecom, every morning you wake up and do things related to telecom. But as we understand it, law has a lot of things. The good thing, it could be something related to telecom, but it could be land because the telecoms will put up masts. It could be things to do with employment because you're all employees, you have to advise on that. So there are different facets that come. And so with that different practicing, even within that same limited space, you realize there's so much to know that I can do. You're doing contracts, you're doing financing, but it's so limited. So that was my journey. I did corporate. I started with a telecom company. I moved from telecom. I went into oil and gas. I worked in oil and gas. At that time, oil and gas was still new. This was 2012.
It was still a myth, right? There was
no. At that time, this is when the farm down happened.
Yeah.
And then Total and CNOOC came into play. Before it was Tallow, Heritage. The announcement of the commercial discovery happens in 2006. Then you have all these negotiations. Tallow is like, I need more people, I need support, so I need to bring in other players. So they look out for Total and CNOOC. So that took almost another 5 years or so. Oil and gas is a very interesting sector. So I got in at that time when these new players come in. It was very new, at least to me. I like I said, I came from telecom, but here was where the opportunity was. And I keep saying this, and I always challenge people, you have to sometimes. So I wanted to change career. I was at that place in my life. The company I was working for was also going through a lot of change.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of uncertainty around it. So one of my bosses, which is so strange, is the one who told me about this opportunity. Said, "Oh, these guys are looking for a lawyer who understands land work, who understands operations, who understands projects. Are you interested?" I even thought it was a trick. I was like, my boss to tell me about. But it was that kind of, again, like you said, a lot of things come into play. Your personality, how you relate to people, how do people see you? Because sometimes you can be sitting there all comfortable, and someone looks at you and they see a lot of potential in you. I've had those experiences, and someone says, "Mark, by the way, yeah, you're doing this thing, but I think you can do so much."
I think that stuff is how I really keep doing what I do. Like I meet random people, they don't know anything about me, then they have this much hope around me. I'm like, bro, I'm struggling, but okay, maybe for you. Let me give it another day.
So you see, opportunity and chance happens to everyone, but it's how you take it.
Yeah.
It's like it's been laid on your table, like food. Are you going to eat it or not? So the first thing that went to my mind was like, I don't have oil and gas experience. How do I even attempt? But I just said, you know what? What's the worst that can happen? I have this moreover from my boss. So now I was a bit challenged. I said, if I don't do it, and he kept asking me, have you sent in your papers? So it was one of those things. Like I said, opportunity and chance, So I put in my application. I was called. I did the interview.
It's more like a risk and reward, right?
I did the interview. I remember in my interview, I had people who even were going to school together in the same, they call you, and these agencies, we were going through an agent, and they just call you and they give you, you just get in your spot. Some had just come from Aberdeen, they'd been doing oil and gas, they had, those government, for lack of a better word, some had that opportunity to advance. I didn't even have a master's at that time. So I went, I told them what I wanted to hear, I spoke about me. So I think they saw something in me. And the next thing I know, the agency called me, you have this job. And it's like, what? And I was looking at, going through all the people I was with who had this, And so I started my journey there as well. But I think for me, the biggest lesson working with the corporate world is it really opened my mind to business. Because you see, even with oil and gas, that's just the output.
Yeah.
But ideally, they're running a business. It's a corporate world. So you have shareholders, you have directors, you have strategies that you want to input, you have budgets, planning. So everything, it enhanced. So it gave me those skills as a lawyer, Now,
as a person, how fast do you pick onto scaling, right? The guy who was setting up these cameras is a very good videographer. But I know he has struggled with things like photography. I've seen him come up to a change, really. Right now, he owns about 80% of Instagram content in Uganda, right? Wow. Most of the content that he's like a benchmark. Anyone who is starting a business will refer to a video he's made.
Nice.
But I know that, of course, since he's like a brother to me as well, right?
Can you send shout outs to him?
Yeah, shout out to Moses. But I've grown up seeing him, right? I know that he has challenges with just learning any other skills. And it's the same thing with me. Like, the things, I have access to all these things. I'm like, but no, let me just do what I want. So for you, how fast do you adopt to new skills to just add them onto the person you are?
It's a very interesting question, Mark, because I don't think the skills we are talking about here. Okay, I think there is venturing.
Yeah. But knowing.
So for example, it's like me as a lawyer. Okay,
exactly.
The skills that I know now, and saying tomorrow I want to learn photography. I might be doing it passively as a hobby, but I don't want to enterprise in it. I'm not interested in making money. But the kind of skills we're talking about are those skills that are also that you can apply to what you're doing. So there's what they call enhancement or continuous growth, right? So you could be here and this is your thing, but enterprising it and turning it into a business.
Yeah.
That you can prepare it, if it's a company, with a mind that in maybe 10, 20 years, I want to list this company to become a public company. Because when you look at the tech world, that is their journey. Most of these tech companies that you see, Facebook, WhatsApp, name it, I think we've all seen it. Yeah. They've run a certain journey. At one point in time, they know we will list But what does that mean? It means from the onset, you must have that business mind, because listing, man, it is, you get money, you get back all your investment, and then you now just sit back and enjoy your what? Your sweat, your proceeds, profit, what? You look at Facebook, how much, when you look at their balance sheet, how much they churn in terms of profit in a year.
Sure.
So, yeah, you're setting up business, or you have the skills. Moses is an amazing photographer. We've talked about him. But out of that passion, can he now enterprise it and bring in the business component? So you see now, if he's to equip himself with business skills, they would be now. So they are more of enablers, skills that enable you to take you to the next level. But there's kind of within that.
Yeah.
No, so now, I can set up my governance structure. I can set up my business with structures. I can have administration, structures. I can have financial structures, how I keep my books, how I do these things. The biggest test I always tell people, try going to a bank and see if they can give you a loan. That's when we know that actually I'm not running a business, I'm running a passion.
That's
that kind of work, the paperwork we ask for. That's the test when I'm talking to entrepreneurs. I'm like, because some of them have run like for even 10 years. They're like, man, may I have my poultry, tukola. Sometimes I usually meet with those guys and we chat. And I'm like, okay, what is your end game? And sometimes even when we set up this company, that's why you see most Ugandans. Yesterday I was having a very interesting debate with a friend of mine. And we're just going through Ugandans, and we're saying, do Ugandans have wealth? Generational wealth?
No.
Or do we have riches?
We have riches.
Thank you very much.
We do have riches.
Even when people set up companies.
Yes, because I was just going to tell you, we only have Jumia listing on the New York Stock Exchange, right? We don't have, do we have any other businesses listed?
Yeah, typical Uganda.
It's actually not Uganda.
So that's what I'm telling you. A company like Ugachik.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
It's one of those companies that have stood the test of time. I want to sit in one of their board meetings and really see what is the end goal. What are you thinking? Is it going to remain a family business? Is it going to, how can you, because Ugachik, being that we are a food basket, can have the potential to spread out to the whole world. And now that is what we call generational wealth. That 4-5 generations after the generation that started Ugachik can still be part of Ugachik. They might not necessarily be 100% shareholders. And that's the other thing that I've found. I always tell young business people, when you're setting up your company, have a mindset that eventually that same company should be the one to expand you. How? Things as simple as shares. People set up companies. I own everything. The Chang, 100% shares are mine.
Updates by on Twitter, CEO this.
CEO. What are those 100% shares?
Yeah.
Look at Zuckerberg. How many shares does he own in Facebook?
I'm not sure.
Diluted right now, he owns even less than 10%. But look at that with what that 10% is bringing for him. So it's the same thing
with Twitter before they bought it from like Jack sold shares to
Bill Gates.
Yeah.
Look at Microsoft. Do you know how much the Bill Gates, how many shares he has? Those people can even have like 3% shares in the whole company.
Yeah, I remember that when Hillary was on this podcast, that's one thing he said. He said, you'd rather, and it's a thing Ugandans don't have. He said, you'd rather be a 3% shareholder for a $1 billion company than to be 100% holder of something.
Your company and your briefcase. But then it has potential. It has potential.
Okay.
Like I've told you, not only people can enterprise, but everyone can be an investor.
Now that makes sense to me.
Now you get where I was coming from.
That makes a lot of sense.
Today, you can
be a part of something you believe in.
Your passion and what you're venturing in. And it all starts with, like I said, the paperwork. Because no investor, even when people go in stock market, that's why people do those prospectus. People want to see the story, that journey on paper, and then they look at, okay, are these things tallying?
Yeah.
Because remember, you're giving us projections. MTN, when we're buying shares on MTN, they're giving us projections. We are growing. And yeah, we see the results coming out of it. So there'll be someone there, when if they bought shares worth 1 million, but they invested. They're not an investor. They own a piece of MTN. So that is the mindset that is lacking. And I think the more we open our eyes towards it, the more you'd see now things actually working. Because you can set up your thing, Mark, your media thing, with an idea of, okay, let me not limit myself to just this. You add in things, you get it on paper, you look for people, resources. People are the greatest resource.
I agree.
Greatest resource. Like I always tell people, money is the last thing. It should always be the last thing. Think of people. Who are you going to work with? What value are they bringing? Don't bring in your friends, bring in your wife, simanya manyangachi, ekintu kyaffe twagala kikuuma, bring in
man, that's the thing. Yeah, in Uganda,
you see,
have so much family.
I always look at people's incorporation documents. Like even now, oil and gas people come to me, we want to chase this deal, these are my, and we want to do a joint venture. But when I go back, I'm like, there is something here. We need to start actually structuring companies from the time they are birthed.
But that's the thing though, from a legal and business perspective, why don't we have companies listing for?
Something because they are too small. Or they could even be big, but the vision is not there. Yeah. People want to retain. I want to be a...
And those people want to become millionaires or extra rich. Are they comfortable with?
I think it's just the mindset. Yeah. It's a mindset thing, and we really need to shift. Because when you look at the success stories working out, you'll find that the founders, and then we also have this founders, I don't know, they call it like a founders disease or founders mentality. This is my thing. I don't want to let go. Change. People rob me. Let me tell you, once your vision is clear, and that's where most people fail. Yeah. Because even when they start businesses, they don't have a vision. Where do you want people? Why are you starting this business? Oh, because Mark had called it. Vituya camera bikola. Nalabye Mark nemulaba nga yogera ne gundu empty. Those things work. I think there's something. He goes, gets money from all his relatives. Ngenda kutandika studio.
I now I'm in the field. I really get people telling me these things.
No vision, no mission, no strategy, nothing. Because he can raise like a 10 million, he buys 3-4 cameras, now in the studio. 6 months down the road, the thing becomes a dango. No idea. He doesn't know I need to network with people for people to buy into my product. Nothing. Nothing on paper. Eventually, it's like, Uganda. Things don't work. But here is a typical ideal story. However small you are, Mark, you start up fine. These are the baby steps. You test it. It's your passion. You give it time. You sacrifice, and that's other people don't want to sacrifice. To get things that you have to sacrifice time, meeting people, being rejected, being abused. But when you're passionate about something, those are just drivers. They don't stop you. Like those people relate with the Zuckerberg, so they'll tell you their stories. Man, we started in my father's garage, Vancouver. Now I had to leave school. There were certain sacrifices they had to make. The mindset that we have, no. The moment you face with a challenge, teaching it. Because again, you don't have the plan, you don't have a vision, and even you yourself, you haven't bought in it. How do you start selling it?
Then how do you realize a vision for your company? Because I don't think you start with it, right? See this, right? We started with just podcasting. So I called my brother up someday. I was at Hillary's apartment still. I was chilling, so I called my brother up. Then he says, it was coming to COVID. Then he said, man, I wanted to start my own podcast. I have a mic. I'm like, okay. But I told him that I have so many people I know. I was working for Guitar Jonathan, but then he was chairman for the One Day Guy Markets, right? So during COVID, I used to sell things on Jumia. But because people didn't have access to the things, the guys that had shops, I would just brand them as my shops online, then sell. I was like, I've actually met so many people. I can have all these conversations. So like, okay, let's try and talk. So we started talking together. Then we branched out. It became fun for us. We saw the need to, he's a film guy, so we saw the need to buy cameras. Then he was like, okay, now this is something. Since you like to do the podcast, we can look for money and put here. But even up to now, we have not realized like the actual vision of the thing, right? Now there's passion, there's consistency. We know that we want to do this, but like a big vision, it's not yet realized. How do you realize that? Like this is it for me. If I reach this is a tipping point. But it's interesting. When I was talking to Vinod, he also told me the same thing. He's still hustling with Jumia. Like it's there waiting for the whole thing is still just a hustling thing. And it looks like that's the environment we operate in. So for you, how do you think businesses should realize their visions?
So again, now just to pick from your story, which I really love, I think the first thing that really defines vision is the need.
Yeah.
The need. What are you trying to solve? Like if you called me for a strategic session, those are things I would ask you guys. What were you trying to solve? What was the need that you saw?
Okay.
You know,
Yeah,
there's so many
very
ordinary
good
people
question.
there.
Yeah.
They just need a space to have these conversations. Okay, so now you're having these conversations. After that, what?
Exactly.
Are you measuring the impact?
Yeah. Now I see how
you see it?
how we
So
develop the
now
next
from
step.
there, after coming from the need, then you come with a clear problem statement. What are you trying to solve? So when you realize that we have a very big population of the youth,
Yeah.
people need to be inspired. You can actually be paid by YouTube for.
Well, the new guy comes in.
Paid on TikTok.
Now Twitter will
I
pay.
don't know if
Okay,
Twitter.
it's just not. We don't have swipe in EG, but Kenyans are getting paid. It's crazy.
There is now. So already you're seeing opportunity. Yeah. That in as much as I don't have to charge these people for my product, but there's someone who is actually willing to pay me. Just give me that content and have the audience. So you see, the two things I'm focusing on: content, audience. But the opportunity is there. But then now, okay, this is your first 2-3 years.
Yeah.
Are you always going to be this? Eventually, these days our attention span is so short. So how do you move forward? How do you build your next 5 years? So your brother comes and says, I have this expertise in film. How do I enterprise in film?
Yeah, we are looking at film as the
it's film. That's what I'm saying. I'm just thinking. By the way, FYI, we didn't talk about this, but you asked me that vision thing. So slowly by slowly, we build. We build 5, 10 years. The problem I found also is that people don't want to think about the future.
Yeah, it's
heartbreaking. Yeah. To think about it. And that's where the limitation comes. Because when you read Bill Gates' books, he'll tell you when he was doing that $5 thing and what, his mind was not just there. He was thinking the future. Every time you limit your mind to today, because today is today, to come, the sun will set and it's done. It's such a little push. Yeah. Think about 10 years. Okay, I might even say 20, but let's not get that pressure. But just think about 10 years. 2030, will this podcast still be relevant? Will film what we're trying, will it still be relevant? Now, once you get to that futuristic position, then you start defining our vision. But where do we want to go?
It actually makes sense, a lot of sense when you think about it.
When it builds up now, then you start going back. What do we need to take us there? We might not have all the equipment. Now we have 1-2 cameras. Okay. Yeah.
And that's fine.
So you start now putting the blocks. But then you say, but you know what? And that's the thing I always say, there's nothing new under the sun. Yeah. You see King Karisa, my very good friend, actually call him uncle. He inspires me a lot. But has he told you his Jemvu Day story?
No.
How he started?
But man, yes.
He's a media mogul right now.
He's not a media mogul.
So that's what we call it.
He's in the headquarters in Dubai, my friend.
I'm telling you. That is what they call aspiration.
Yeah.
So for now, you can look at someone like him, but he also has a story. He has his 1,000 hours or whatever he's putting. So such stories need to aspire because you're in the same industry. So your dream, you'll say, I want to also be a multifaceted media mogul. You know, I'm throwing at you like words, heavy words. Multifaceted media, because that's what he does. He's very multifaceted. You'll see him. The what do they call it? They're Afro something done that it's on the internet. He's on the internet. He's on media. Yeah.
He's an inspiration, really.
Everything. Yeah. So now I'm telling you. So, do you think you can be the next generation King Karisa? Sure. Now, that formulates your journey. So you're like, how? Yeah. So you're like, you know what? You say to your brother, you say, you know what? Let's now form a company. If it's not that I'm saying, let's form a company. Let's start this journey now. Knowing that in 10 years, if we might not be able to raise that capital, then millions and trillions of shillings that will be needed for us to get to that next level, at least we'll find people who would have seen our journey, trusted our journey, buy into what we're thinking, and they're ready to invest in us. And so you're like, okay, let's prepare. So you start now. you prepare yourselves, and when that time comes, believe me, if you're consistent, disciplined, and you walk the journey.
And it really works out because the biggest podcast in the world right now has about 2,000 episodes, right? But when you go back, the biggest podcast is called the Joe Rogan podcast. It's for a white man, of course.
2,000 episodes, like all
over. But he started way back. He didn't think it would work out, but he kept at it, right? Then Spotify came about. Now Spotify gave him exclusive rights to just have his podcast on his thing for $200 million. And that's the biggest podcast.
Wow.
Earning really a lot of money, right? Yeah. So
those are things now that inform your strategy.
Yeah, that one is there. Now you're now I need to go back and sit and
those are the
draw like a board.
Exactly. You need that's why they always say, like, now corporate world, of course it's Luzungu benchmark. What's your benchmark? Who are your aspirations? You have some here locally, so once you have that match, that benchmark, because there's nothing new under the sun limited.
So again, now wait. When oil and gas was booming, right? In the time it was booming, I used to have conversations with Tony Otoa. I don't know if you know him. So Tony used to tell me to make sure I partner. Of course, since he's an incubator for Stanbic, his main push was then making informal businesses formal, right? To like expand large. But we've not seen results of that. So that threatens you into like, let me just keep my thing small. Yeah? Let me just do it. As long as my boys are happy, I'm happy. Maybe that's it. Like, I shouldn't get so much from life.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Doesn't want so much from life.
That's when you're not thinking generational. Because if it can't be, then you're like, at least let me do it for my children. That's the thing,
right? Now, my granddad, right? My granddad had so much land. Before he passed on, I think, he had up to, 18 children?
Wow.
So, my father and his siblings, they all have land in PG somehow. Like, it was big. They were giving them acres because this guy had so much land, and that was generational. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm so sure our dad will pass that on to us. Then because it's like family stuff, you have to keep there. You don't sell. You have to keep to your children, things like that. But how do you, right now, I sit down with my brother. My brother has some good money. So, but whenever I sit down with him, I ask him, how do we get money to buy this much money, this much land like our grandfather, and have generational wealth? Because this is like a business. Of course, like the dream is to maybe become like a big studio, but then people have tried here. They've tried. Net Studios. I go to that studio and see they have everything, but it's stagnant. I have more kins than them. I have more content than they do. They want my content. So it scares me. Like, he's put in the investment and it has failed. Okay, in my perspective, I feel like it has. He could be patient or something. So that just scares me from the whole business world. You're like, you know what? The Kwagalana guys, I don't know how they're doing it, but first of all, they are very informal. They're just doing normal Chikubo Indian business where they're selling stuff, and that's comfortable for them. We don't have brands that expand out. Why don't we? Really?
And for me, that's the same thing we've been talking about, you know? The appetite to grow, the appetite to take risk. Because now you're saying, okay, you're thinking of, we want to expand. Of course, it needs money to set up a studio and what, you need.
No, but finding the money is not the issue, right? Finding the money is not the issue. Expanding and it makes sense is the issue. Yeah.
And it takes me back to the thing, what are you trying to solve?
Okay. No, that is a question I'll have to answer.
What are you trying to solve? What need?
The problem.
What need? And most times it comes from a need. Because when you define something as a need and not a want, and it's a need, it's like food. People will always go for it. No matter what or what, people always tell you, think for basic needs, Food, shelter. So even as you're trying to define your business statement or problem statement, what is the need? So when you look at your generation, when you look at the youth, and for me with the youth, I feel that they need to get the right information. It's lacking. The go-to place for most time for the youth now is Twitter. But look at what's on Twitter.
It's crazy.
Nudes, manyanga, what, and that's what they're feeding onto. So tell me how someone like that will be motivated to sit and start something and persevere.
That's a point. So in this world, how do we get the right information? That's not the question. In a world where there's so much information, right? I can cook from here. I can just cook up a lie, and because of my following, that would be like the norm for some time. It will trend. Guys who know me would believe in that, but it will be false. So how do you decipher right and wrong in our current world, in your perspective?
Because right now, right and wrong, that the line has become so thin.
Exactly.
From our generation, it was as clear as white and black. You dress a certain way, you talk a certain way, you walk a certain way. It black and white. It started graying. Yeah. Now it's like the line is becoming so thin. There's so many things that we are born as a society
in different genders, and they are not those genders anymore.
But I think for me, like I said, for someone like you who wants to really find a product and need, that's why I'm saying you need to have the right measures.
Yeah, measuring it.
Measuring your output.
Yeah.
You need to find people who will be loyal to your brand, and then who can sell it. Of course, now we've come from the generation of just networking, like how it used to be. Our generation was more networking. If I am, for example, part of Rotary, I will always know I'll get something from Rotary. But now things have changed. The dynamic now is more of relationship building. Like, I don't owe you anything just because you're my neighbor in Tinder. You see? But if there is a relation, like I said, my LC chairman when I have problems.
It was actually something when we were growing up. I was raised by the whole community. My dad was most of the time outside in Japan. But whenever I used to go out with the bike and go past maybe where we're staying, you could get a call. What like you could feel the whole community is attached into the person you are. Yeah, but
because there were relationships.
True.
I'm sure when your dad would come from Japan, he would bring something for his.
Yeah, that was the thing. As a church person.
Yeah, genuine concern for people, but that's also being eaten up by.
Now I see the value of that. I've always questioned this man. Why did you spend so much money on the church? But now that answers it.
So we have moved on. Maybe 5-10 years or so ago, networks would help. People will just remember those things. I'm a Budonian, or I'm from Chibuli, and then you'd expect certain opportunities to come just because you're affiliated with that network. These days, no. I can tell you in my workforce, I don't have anyone from Chibuli. But relationships. How are you relating with people? And relationship in a manner of value. Value. Like, what value are you bringing to people? So once your content can solve that, you'll start attracting, because that's a missing link. The content out there doesn't have value. The youth, we have such a huge population, like 80% of our population is below 25 years now. Our population has hit 45 million. Just look at those numbers. Yeah. So you see, there is an actual opportunity for this space to be redefined.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, it's not like this has never happened before. When you read, even when you look at the Bible, when you look at the times and seasons, these things have happened. The world has gone into chaos. And somehow, you need people to rise up and be the ones that bring back a certain order. Now, the good thing these days, one of the biggest opportunity we have is technology. So, depending on your goal and your purpose and what you feel you are really drawn to, the need is easy to pick up.
To access.
Enterprise through that.
Okay. So, your time as the Secretary General of EA and the Law Society. Tell us about that.
The East Africa Law Society.
And your time, like you're working promoting legal education. What do you think about the law in general? From like an East African perspective, how are we? I attended the East African Business Council. So guys were talking about how the council is really beneficial for the private sector. Yeah, just give me your opinion on that, since you're like the former SG.
Yeah, so East African Law Society, of course, it's really, like I said, connectivity, as we are part of the East African community. It has been there since
forever.
But it's been a journey. As these 5, now we are at 7 countries. Started
Oh.
with 3.
Okay.
Started with 3. So, like I said, the East African community is there. It's a reality. But what is still lacking, or the journey we are all still struggling with, is how does it work? How do we make it work? For example, as lawyers, we have the East African Law Society, which is the umbrella body for all the bar associations, the legal associations, the advocates associations, the law societies of all these different countries, to bring us together so that we have a community at that level. So one of the biggest challenges, and something we're trying that we're still struggling with, is we're a community. We have already these laws and policies and, custom, movement of goods, movement of people. As a Ugandan, I should just freely move into Kenya, or,
Yeah.
But is that the reality? Movement of services. As a Ugandan, I should be able to go to Kenya and practice law.
No, that's not the reality.
I should be able to go to Rwanda and practice law, or Burundi, what we call mutual recognition of these professional services. So those are things that are still
challenges, right?
The challenges that still fail to be a reality. So during my time, I did 2 terms, and this was part of the story. Of course, every governing council that comes in, there are issues that you want to solve at that time. Just 2 years are not really, it's not a lot of time in leadership and governance. But during our term, and we did our term, and then COVID happened. So we did 1 term physically, and then the other term
remotely.
So I think for us, more than just business as usual, just being the umbrella body, providing solutions, engaging the East African, I think for me, what stood out the most for me was we conducted an election for the next governing council online.
Oh, okay. How did that go? People are voting on Zoom?
People voted. No, we got a voting system.
Yeah,
for this. And so we literally, because we were pressed for solutions, and we were just like, no, we can't stretch on this term because our constitution doesn't allow it. Doing it will be doing it illegally. We'll need to hold, a special meeting to have people just now getting. So we debated a lot. And finally, we managed to get a technology solution. So we had the voting happen online. It was quite uncharted territory, There were, of course, so many challenges, glitches, this, that, even getting into preparing it as a Secretary General, because elections sit with Secretary General's office. And the CEO at that time worked hand in hand. It was one of those experiences that I'll always hold very close to my heart, but we managed to do that. Yeah, so for me, that was really among all the other things that we did.
What are your hopes for the future of the East African Law Society?
Oh, my hope is I really want to see us speaking the East African community journey. At the time we left, during my term, we had sent a bill, the East African Law Society bill, to the ENC Parliament, which has not yet been passed. But what that bill, if enacted into law, what it's supposed to do is to solve most of these things as professionals that we see. First of all, even our society in its own. It's a company limited by guarantee. It's like just an association, but it's not the kind of organization we want. We want something that is clearly recognized as the umbrella body for lawyers. So that was one of the things we had proposed: fees, membership, and so on and so forth. Of course, during that time, we also admitted South Sudan officially as a member of the East African Law Society.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was when South Sudan.
Yeah.
So now DRC came on board as well when DRC joined the East African Law Society. And also at that time, we had a proposal from the Bar in Ethiopia to be part of the East African Law Society. But that's still on. Yeah. So those are some of the things you do, and
not done.
Yeah.
Feel proud of yourself, right?
Just
this is why you wake up sometimes and motivate us on you feel you earn that need to do that. Okay, now what are your thoughts on the impact of technology on the legal profession? Yeah.
We had a lot of discussions around this at the annual law conference. So technology is here to stay.
So I was having a conversation with Semakade some time back. Back. He wanted me to be his official video person, move around, record all the things he's chasing up on. He was telling me technology is going to put lawyers out of business.
Yeah.
Do you believe that?
It already is. I mean, look at certain services, especially around the company house, URSB. That was most of our work. Registering companies, registering business, but now everything has been moved online. The ORBS, Online Registration Bureau Service, is now as an online service. So
okay.
Clearly, land, we have this the land the online system for land registration. Well, of course, it still has its challenges, but it's only a matter of time. So you see a lot of business as usual products for us as lawyers, the services that we offer are being taken by technology. But I think it's a threat. But in there's so many opportunities that come with that as well. Because technology is not, it's not singular. There are a lot of things that are needed for technology to work. Technology contracts. Now we're moving into the world of artificial intelligence, There's a whole world that is going to be created. And where we know everywhere there's like social and the world there's need for social order. And what governs that social order? It's laws. So it's a matter of lawyers adapting and reinventing themselves. One, you start by being tech savvy. Two, there's an opportunity for you to even develop products that work for you. For example, if I see now the craze around doing podcasts and doing these things, there will be issues that will come out of it. For example, someone steals your content. This is online community. You don't even, but somehow you see someone has picked our whole conversation, branded them, Mr. T conversations, and puts it out there somewhere as his. What do you do? Exactly. So you see the world as it advances. Let me tell you this. I always say there's nothing you understand. Look at how the physical world is operating. The laws, the system. That is how the Internet of Things also is evolving into. So there will be need for disputes to be solved online. There will be need for people to execute or be able to get awards online. And I follow you online, travel your online life and be able to, you understand? So there's a whole world that is, so the question for me is, yes, it's a threat, but in there you have to realize the opportunities and quickly adapt, but also evolve the way of work. These days as lawyers, at the firm, we have apps, we have systems, filing has now changed. We do physical files, but then we also make sure we have online files. When I'm at home and I need to respond to a client, I just go to this system and then I have everything. I don't have to be in office. So I think also when COVID happened, it changed. Because even then as lawyers, people say we are such a traditional profession. People worked. People in Kenya now, online court is it. When I go to Nairobi and visit some law firms that we work with, you find the person who's in court is like, oh, I can't meet you, I'm going to court. Now for me here in Uganda, I'm going to court means physically. I just see the guy rubbing up and goes to his computer.
And that's it.
Online court is...
Is this the future of law?
It should be the future of law. It should be. I think there was something, when was it, last year? Where we had a robot judge. These are snippets of what's going to come. In Malaysia, actually, I read, I think it was last year, they have started artificial intelligence judgment. Kind of like law. So you do your submissions, I do my submissions, you submit it to this online system. Then the AI picks up and writes your judgment.
Do you feel like these are the key terms shaping the legal profession? Key terms facing the whole profession, like shaping it to like for the future or things like that. AI, do you think AI is participating?
It's most definitely shaping us. ChatGPT. I mean, guys, we even at my office we're testing ChatGPT and we're writing opinion. Give me an opinion, and the guy was just and we're like, okay.
And the answer, right? Like I feel like that law is based on proven things, right?
There is some content.
So what does that word really? The fact that for you to come to conclusion to a case, you need evidence of that same exact case from the past. I cannot commit something new. Like I can't. Why should my whole judgment be based on to something that has happened?
And the precedents.
Yeah.
Yeah. The precedents come in a way that they help you formulate. Again, it comes from the issue that there's nothing new under the sun. So, for example, if you've murdered, you're not the first person who has murdered.
Okay.
There have been cases that have been
almost like
similar
scenarios,
evidence provided. So we always refer to those. One, to ensure that there is stability in the way cases are being solved, because you're using the same law. So it's the penal code for us in Uganda. So if the penal code says these are the tests, these are the ingredients, then today for you judge it in your way. Tomorrow I come, I put in my. So there must be that kind of consistency. So that's how precedents help us. Also to ease of work. Now when they say law is very traditional, we also have ways we want to be efficient. So I will use a case that was judged. We use a lot of common law. You'll be shocked some cases that we quote are from the 18th century, 19th century, early 20th century, but they're still law, unless another court or another judge decides so differently that kind of distorts the thing, but the pattern. So then you just focus mainly on the facts. So you just mainly focus on the facts and how those facts then speak into the law and these other precedents, the old things that you're saying.
What are some of the most pressing legal challenges facing the region? The ones you can speak on, that you've been with all this experience, you've raised up as a partner, but you feel like these are pressing, these are not handled.
Of course, as a region, it's the rule of law.
Okay.
The law is there, but we're not being ruled by the law. It's a big challenge.
I feel like that's a thing. Region could include like East Africa, but for Uganda, that's like our biggest problem.
Yeah.
Because when you go to Rwanda, it's different, right? You feel like it's working.
Yeah.
Yeah. The police guys taxing you on the road are giving that money back to government. It's not like an individual thing. Yeah, the cameras finding you left, right, and center. That.
So rule of law is our biggest challenge. But when you look at our laws and read them, they are so nice. You see the heartbeat of what this country should be. Because law defines social order. Law provides solutions. Law directs people. Even from the Bible, we got the 10 commandments for a reason. Don't kill, don't steal, don't murder. Otherwise, it would be a jungle kind of society. So you find that we have laws in all aspects of life, including even tech. We have a whole digital laws, everything is there. So for me, what really concerns me is that the heartbeat of this nation, right from our constitution, is clearly defined. When you read it, you can see the rhythm and pattern. You can close your eyes and imagine how the ideal Uganda would be. And it's so tangible. And it's beautiful, right? And it's beautiful, People are doing what they're supposed to do. People are being responsible. People are not corrupt. Because we have a whole IGG institution which has all the laws governing, declare your wealth. But someone is in a ministry earning 800,000, they're putting up apartments in Nigeria. How?
Did you see the need for you to become a political person so that you get the power to do some of these things?
If I had the power, one of the people I really admire and feel that our system, and for me, because I used to admire her so much and I saw what happened, how the system really dealt with her eventually, Jennifer Musisi. I literally, if it were possible, I would have, worshipped the ground she walked on. And I think because the passions, the pains that I have, I felt she was speaking into them. Because it doesn't take much to organize the city. But when things were politicized, when she was,
Yeah.
So the need for order, in as much as we want it, we don't want to take.
At some bit, I didn't even feel her impact. I felt like it was also just another pawn, in the game.
She did. Even some of the projects that are being implemented right now, most of them were planned during her time.
So,
just remember how Kampala City was.
Yeah.
When we started the zoning of borders, there was some social order coming up. You could see. I think these things are clearly in the Kampala City Act, the regulations, noise
So how do we hold the people responsible accountable to these things? Minus politicizing them. Can't I like go and sue the current ED for not following?
You can. I know a lot of law cases happening. People are suing for this, for roads.
Yeah.
For what. But again, it's
Politicized. Really.
It's politicized. It's a broken system, you know. But it's not that it can't be mended. It can be mended. There is hope.
Yeah. What are your hopes, by the way, for the future of law in Uganda? For you, hopes and dreams.
I really would love to see Uganda where the law works.
By working, you mean there's implementation,
yes. And even the people who need to be supported.
Okay.
I mean, why is a minister, I don't know, getting how much money and this? Yet the police, who is at the heartbeat of society, is being wasted away. You know why? Like even priorities.
We don't have those.
Justice, law, and order. That is the heartbeat of society. So you're neglecting the police, but you're caring more about the ministers or parliamentaries, or they're caring much about themselves because of their selfish needs. Politics is a commodity. I had to spend 1 billion just to get into this office. But how do I quickly make money? So your concerns are not the debates, they're not the issues, it's not what's happening to the country. It's how do I quickly churn out money in these 5 years and pay off my leaders, but also make sure I secure my spot. But also your constituents now are seeing you as a money-making machine. You're the one who contributes to school fees for the whole constituency. You're the one who is every burial you're called upon. Minister Gondi data sent, everyone is asking you for money. So the whole ecosystem around the politics has totally been distributed.
Okay.
It's unfortunate, but I think there's opportunity. For me, every time there's a threat and challenge, I see opportunity. So I'm hopeful. I hope that my hope is that one day the rule of law.
What do you think you can do, you as Honey, to change something? Okay, you're already doing, right? You found.
I do.
So yes,
with the little space that I have, I also do a lot of information sharing.
True, that I agree.
Contribute for that. I can share. I can meet with businesses because now for us, we're in business. We are not in politics, but we are feeding the politics. They tax you. They tax you. They tax you. Every day they're throwing something new at you because we have such huge expenditure. You have to feed it. So, what do you do? So, information sharing, getting people like what we've been talking about. How best can you work within the system, but also make something out of yourself? Don't fall into the system. You know.
Yeah.
Don't give up because there's a lot of hopelessness, especially around our youth. Like exactly that statement that you made. People have that mindset. But it actually works. So now what role am I playing? Just information sharing. Yes, you can build a system.
Actually, now the answer to a Uganda that works is a Uganda that can respect the rule of law. That's just it. Yeah.
I'm telling you, I can sample you 5. What are your pain points right now? Just 2 or 3. And I bring you what the laws of those issues are.
Overtaxing, really. The taxes are crazy.
The taxes. So we get the Income Tax Act and all its amendment. By the way, if you read the Income Tax Act from the start, you see that the amendments are feeding into the demands of the overspending of the country. That's it. But if you look at the original Income Tax Act, before all these amendments, just know every year, whatever the budget, we know we can't find money, an amendment is done. Now include this, now include this, now let's tax diapers. Well, where in a system do you tax diapers? Like, how does it make sense? We have adults, we have the elderly who are suffering right now. You know, we have children that are being born. People can't afford something as simple as a diaper. But what are we doing? We are feeding into. I remember when they were coming for the tech world.
Yeah.
I remember when they were coming. I remember what happened.
Because that was just going to be
tax. Yeah. Facebook, what all these things. I remember in this amendment when they were coming for our savings. Like, who does that to us, to our system?
Oh, wow.
There was a proposal that, because me, I do unit trust. You know, after all the tax and what my income, I'm like, banana. As a matter of fact, any income I have, I'm like, let me save
something.
Minimum is 10, maximum is 20. So how do I do that? I keep reducing on my expenditure all the time. So I have my boss, meanwhile, not this money has already been taxed. I've paid income tax already. Somewhere they've been held, whatever source it has come from. So it's like my money. So I'm like, I told you, I like to invest because enterprising or those things are not yet my forte, right? So I'll get my money and say, let me put it in a unit trust. Even if it will give me 10% per annum, it's still something that either me eating, because if I keep it on my account, I'll either eat it or it will realize charges. If it's 1 million, by the end of the year, I'll only have 950. If I put it in UFP, and UFP, okay, I'm not advertising for UFP, but it's what I use. I use a unit trust and say, okay, it will give me 12% per annum. So I have grown my money by what? 120K. Make a 1 million at the end of the year. Instead of eating it, bank charges, it has given me what? 120,000.
And that's something, right?
It's something. Yeah. Now, that proposal was saying, as UAP pays me this money,
they get something. Oh my
that's 120.
Then they talk of something.
They tax it. I was like, where in the world? But remember our budget? How much money we're going to spend? How much money we are spending? It's just the bad manners that we have. But ideally, if we had a fair taxation system, governance, rule of law,
would be good. Because we're like really good people, right? It's a country to
yeah, but we're still good people. We are still very good people.
Yeah, now, the thing we will jump into next will be, first of all, income, right? Business. We have spoken so much about businesses and how they're not succeeding. The one thing that stands out is access to funding.
Yeah.
How do we access funding, in your opinion? How can businesses access funding? Then from there, like, are we really not a trustworthy people? Because look, this is a second case we're having, right? Of people we look up to, people that are entrepreneur, failing out to the people that are giving them money. We had the harm thing, then we have the arbitration thing running. So we'll talk about that arbitration some. But how do we access funding?
Okay, so how do you access
funding? From like a legal perspective, we organize, then from like a business perspective, business lead as well. So this is like a really good question for you.
Yeah, it is actually a very excellent question. I actually like it. Funding is very interesting. There are people who will assure you that they have built their empires not on their money, but from other people's money. You've heard of that thing?
Yeah.
How do you build your business on your own money? So
Natif is my own and also a very good friend. But I have seen him before he sold out. You know Natif Getting Health? Before he sold out, the first thing he did, I remember, because he's now your agent, because he's St. Plus Auxiliary. But I remember, because most of those guys are my friends, I remember the struggle he used to go through, like just using people's money, reaching out to people. So, but then I find that so hard. And I am such a friendly person. Like I can talk to people. I walk into boardrooms with people and I walk out to money easily, even when I'd not planned for it. So I feel like maybe should I take this direction, look for funding this way? But now I have you too. Like,
So there is that facet. So again, before you even go for funding, that's why I always tell people, young people, when we're talking, the first thing they'll tell you, we have all these ideas, we are innovative, we're creative, but there's no funding. And I'm like, how can you tell me you're innovative and creative that there's no funding? Funding is always the last. And that's why people fail to pay loans. Because you start with the end at the beginning. The beginning should always be the business. Shape out the business. Having the right resources. Having the right plans. Having the right strategies. Test the businesses. Because if you want to test something, even 100 or 200K, you can do it. But you're like, no, me, if I don't have 100 million, I can't start. I have this great plan of mine. That's why it's even these days with these innovators and this plan, people actually tell you, no, let's run your business like for 3 years. Then we'll give you the grants. No one wants to touch a startup. Why? Because people feel that if you really have the same investment and belief in your business, you cannot fail to run it for at least 3 years. Just like the example we've given you. Yeah?
Yeah.
You put things together, resources, people, even if run something, organize it. So now, by the time you come for funding is always the last. And funding is very specific. What are you funding? I'm funding growth. Maybe I need to expand.
Yeah.
And even in that expansion, why are you expanding? People feel like expanding. Yeah, I'm expanding, but why are you expanding? Are you ready for it?
Because you see a wash bay, these things that wash clothes. You see it on every mall in a space of the business just started, but the guys
spread out, Mark and washing bay, like you've just started 1 month, but you all spread out in 6. Yeah. How are you going to manage?
Exactly. I always ask myself like,
it's a death trap. But again, there's always that prestige. Ugandans, Vandawatia competition, we don't enter into things for the right reasons. Yeah. That's what they always say, start small.
Do you really believe that, though? That
I do.
People who have made their own money sit back and be like, let's just do it because someone is doing it. I feel like money is so hard to make. You have to think through investing.
No, people do it. People do it. It's a mindset. Like someone comes to you, I will confess, there's a business we invested in with my husband. I was personally against it because I didn't have a salon, a barber shop / salon. So he has this friend of his, he's selling out. So it's like, I have this very good location. Town, like where Christ the King is, as you go up.
Yeah.
Very good. Actually, just below Worker's house. Convinces him. So he tells me, I'm like, I don't know anything about running a barber shop. I don't know. Like exactly the story I gave you. They've run for him the numbers. They'll be banking money in the week. So lo and behold,
it's happening.
And I'm like, fine, we invest in the business, we buy the salon. My friend. Even the guys already who are there, because we bought the salon with the workers, they were all okay, but my friend, I cannot prove you.
Everything becomes funny in a minute.
But because you also had a friend who had just done the same thing. And his friend was telling him, man, this thing is working. Now, the only difference was that the friend was there.
In the business.
He was there. So we ended up, we eventually ran it like for 2 years. It was just nasty. Like I don't even have what it was nasty. We ended up reselling it to someone else who it's now working for. Because they're like, there. Please. The things they were doing to us, like you'd sit there in a week and the guy bucks 100,000. And we had put cameras. And you're seeing the movement that barber chairs. And the guy's like, they give you this full story. And you're like, what? This is the money that I'll be getting the messages from Equity Bank. I'm like, what? So, but you see, now I don't have the maybe statistics or what, but at least from the patterns I've seen, people do set up businesses because someone else has set it. That thing, competition, Uganda.
Yeah.
Like I said, I would rather if I admire your business and I like what you're doing. Like if I had an opportunity and Mandela from Javas came and said, Asmahaney, of course now in numbers I was so well, but in my mind, there's some businesses I see, I have watched, I have followed, like I see their story. I see, even without them telling me, I can see the strategy. I can see where they're going. Yeah. Mandela came and told me, you know what, we need to expand. We're opening up another branch. Do you have 100 million? I'm telling you, even if it's selling my kidney, I would sell it
down for this.
Buy shares in that specific outlet properly, and I invest in drivers and I sit there. And I'm sure, of course, I'll do my due diligence, I'll look at the numbers. But so instead of someone coming wanting to compete with Mark, why doesn't he sit down and say, Mark, I like what you're doing. I think it's time for you to expand. I have this certain need. What is your need? I need cameras, I need this, and okay. Let's do our paperwork, our DP, let's do everything. Can you give me what is this 30 million worth? Which takes me back to how you structure your company.
Yeah.
If you have the number figure, this is how much the price of per share, you give him the price. It's like, fine. I've invested in your share capital. Give me 10% of your company. Now Uganda nechichi sisobola. Oyagala kunziba 10% in a company, mulimunze, muchala wange. What is your muchala doing in the company?
Are you as a person, do you have split business from your husband?
Yes, I do.
Nice.
I have some.
Because man, it's here.
I have some.
It's challenging. Like you see it, and you're like, bro, first keep the family.
But one thing diluting share. Of course, there's that option you can dilute.
Yeah.
You can bring in other people. Like we have a company that we run is real estate and we do a lot of logistics. It's still small, but today, right now, I want to get it into the oil and gas sector. But if I had like a company from abroad wanted to partner with us, JB, in a heartbeat, once I've done my DD and I will give out shares and have them come in to build us, take us to where we want to go. So back to the funding issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, so funding, there are two ways of funding. Either you'll be funded by debt, or you'll be funded by what I'm talking about, equity. Someone comes in and buys in share. Now, also, the decision of whether you wanted to want to be funded by debt or equity is also very important. Not every growth that you need needs a debt, Vanagi. I'm telling you. So you quickly run to the bank. You're going to add 4 floors, or I've seen people, because I used to do a lot of mediations at the commercial court. People are losing their property. Someone gets, I'm going to build a Tizimbe, they give the number of numbers, they make sense. They give you the money, first of all, the guy first diverts that money.
Buys a Range Rover.
Only one. For him, for the wife, for a personalized number. But you've seen the story.
It's the same script.
It's the same script. And that takes me back to, who are you putting in your company? Governance. I mean, we received $10 million. I'm seated on my board. Mark, you're my husband. He's my son. Then is my uncle. We don't have any accountability. I'm like, guys, bank it.
Everyone on their egos.
We're not Dubai. Send them. And this is our board of directors. This is the decision making. Who will send them? Madam, I bought for your Range Rover. And now everyone looks at the money as if it's free money. Meanwhile, the bank has told you after 2 months or 3 months,
you need the money back.
And meanwhile, that is not bank's money. That is people's money, me and you. That's how banks lend.
Yes.
Liquidity comes from the deposits people make.
Yeah.
Or the bank just uses your money to make an interest out of it. And that's why the bank will always be on your case. So now you tell me, remember my company, the board of directors is full of, hey, we can even be here in a board meeting as you're having tea. Because you're here, because like,
there's no structure.
So you see how we go down.
No accountability.
You see how we go down.
Yeah.
So 6 months down the road, I've diverted money. The bank, actually, the BOQs, the bill of quantities I've written, everything is okay. I've put in engineers, surveyors, everyone has given me the right thing. All I had to do was let the money do its work. So 6 months down the road, the bank comes where you should have been like on 3rd floor, you're still on 1st floor. You're starting stories. Before we know it, the loan is going back. But before you know it, the bank has to recover its money. So you see how it plays out in our system.
Yeah.
The other thing, like I told you, in this family, why don't we say, guys, depending on the status of our business? Yeah? Let me give an example. Maybe, which business? Okay, maybe Wavamuno's Mercedes business. I sit there as a family, like, guys, we need to expand, put more showroom. Do we really need to have debt? Then I'm like, but can't they invest in our business? We've been here for 30 years. Can't they invest in our business? Can't we call on people to invest?
Okay, now I see where you draw the line to equity. And you're like, okay, this sounds serious.
Want to hold on to that thing of change, and it's bringing us down. It has brought many, because sometimes I look at financing documents and you read it and I'm like, but do you really have to borrow? Do you have to incur that interest rate? Do you? I believe it. I can lend you this money. Just give me shares. And the person is like, Nedda. Katiba Mutandi said, you want to steal my business. Do you have to borrow?
But do you believe that maybe a big majority of people are just ignorant of this kind of information? Like,
I think so.
Yeah, because
maybe like I say, first of all, like this was it, the structuring and expansion of your growth of your business. If it's a family business, I have nothing against family business, but be investors as families. When you're setting up your board, which is in charge of your strategy, is in charge of direction, controls, and things like that, bring in other people. Bring in a map. Who doesn't know your family? Just link map. You're good at this. Part of our business, we're trying to set up a media company. We need your expertise. Come and tell us.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost much to maintain the right expertise on your board. I bring it, and you allow us to do what we're supposed
to. The jobs. That's the thing.
So people out there grow their company.
Okay.
And then you grow. But here, you are the shareholders, you're the directors, you have your meetings in the bedroom, in the sitting room, the kids have come from holiday. By the way, you guys, I have this resolution, come and sign. They sign until so the kids are part of. They don't ask questions, they don't ask for accountability, they don't ask for anything. Then before you know it, a very good company with a very good idea, with a very good is slowly going down the drain. I really wonder how people like businesses, like how you see my Bunny business and things like that, you know, in as much as they're family businesses, well, I know they have very good governance structures. At least even when you go to URS, because now there's a public document and you check, you'll see from their paperwork, you see there is a certain way the business is governed, discipline is what. So those things really, really matter.
Do you want to talk about why? First of all, why did why was the arbitration case solved from New York and not here by you lawyers?
From UK.
Yeah, from the UK, actually, from London.
From London, it was because of the arbitration. So, but personally,
there are two African parties involved, right? Uganda
and South Africa.
And South Africa.
Yeah.
Like, why did they have to cross out of Africa anyway?
It was by choice.
Okay.
And maybe perhaps just to inform people how arbitrations work. So arbitrations is like private court, in which you are allowed to agree and decide on it from the time you're contracting. So sometimes what fails people, which for me I think is always a good way of solving disputes. One, it's private. The reason why we now know what happened, it's because perhaps maybe they have to bring the award and enforce it here and things like that. But ideally, an arbitration will happen privately. The public, those things never go on public record.
But we actually knew, right? We first got to know that now they're going for arbitration.
Yes, because it came from court. Okay. Remember those things went out and went to court and they were trying not to go, and court actually ordered them to go for arbitration. Now, arbitration basically as a form of solving dispute is really party based.
We agree. Okay.
So you agree to the venue where you want your arbitration to take place. You agree on the law that is going to govern your arbitration. You agree on who you want to arbitrate. You arbitrate on the rules that you're going to use. You understand? So in this instance, in their agreement, they agreed to go to the London Court of, and they agreed to the UK law to being the governing law of that arbitration. In as much as both of them are.
Which law also like crowns us here, right?
Not really. The arbitration agreement on its own is distinct, it's separate.
Okay.
So the whole agreement can run with Ugandan law. But when it comes to that specific clause on arbitration, you can say, for our arbitration, when we have this dispute, we want Chinese law to be the one to govern the whole arbitration process until this dispute is solved. It's allowed. As long as you parties do what? Agree. So that's that's why sometimes people go for London Port, people go for Hong Kong, people go for Paris. Even here in Uganda, we have rules, we have a venue, we can be a seat for arbitration.
You said you do this, right?
Yeah.
For Ugandans. Why should people get to that point where they have to get someone else to help them solve their issues? I mean, there are already issues that
you failed to solve.
Yes.
Well, like any dispute, the arbitrator comes in when you have failed.
But then we have to agree to that arbitrator.
Yes.
That means we have not really failed to agree. But
you see the thing that, and I always love it because I'm a contract lawyer as well. So most times when people are doing contracts, like any marriage, actually, let me not even take it so sophisticated and put in zone. When people are getting married, do they ever visit that will have issues? That at one point in time will not talk, or that we might even divorce? No one wants to even think about it. You even tell them they're like, you're the devil. You're the devil.
These days, the people are smart.
Yeah, these days people are smart.
I was taking.
They do prenuptial.
Yeah, they
do prenups. But even just the mention of a prenup, I cannot imagine a time.
It means that this, until now this guy doesn't first be what,
So it takes a certain mindset for people to actually even acknowledge or accept that we can actually do a prenup. That's marriage. But the ideal marriage situation, get married. But like any relationship,
happy forever.
You're dealing with a fellow human being. Even I always say, even God who created us is still struggling with us. Today he's telling you this, you're still doing. Now me, who has just met you at a certain point in my life, how am I sure that end all and be all will be all? No. It's a relationship. So you'd expect there will be disagreements, there will be challenges, there will be, and that's how contract relationship is. At the beginning, I'll be like, Mark, I'm going to invest in your company. We are like BFF. Like we don't even envisage something will go wrong. And so most people, when they get to the clause, it's a standard clause in all contracts. Most people gloss over it. They're like, that one you just put. We'll never. Yes, no, me I know Mark. Mark, like, I cannot. We've agreed 2-3 years, you start getting a dividend on your investment. Come on. 3 years pass, 5 years pass. Now it's becoming a what? I'm chasing you around. I'm not getting any accountability. I'm saying, Mark, what's wrong? So it starts becoming a dispute. So your ideal dispute resolution clause, one, it should allow for parties. You should give them a chance to talk, to negotiate, to try and solve between themselves before you bring in other people. But when that fails, and in a timely manner. So
that means when that fails, really,
that's when you bring in other people. Because your ideal situation would be go to court. But eventually it evolved. And people are saying, do I have to go to court and line up with everyone with all the issues in court? Why can't I have someone? Yes, give us the rules, the guidance, everything that we need to solve this dispute, but let's do it under our own terms because we're the ones who entered into this agreement. Why should we go and oversee them and I'm under civil procedure rules? They're telling me what to do. No. Why can't I have that independence? Yes, I'll allow court to supervise me if there's anything, but let me pick someone. So where it has worked very well is in construction sector. With construction, it's unheard of for construction matters to go to the mainstream court. They have standard arbitration clauses. They have standardized agreements, what we call the FIDIC agreements. They have standard, even RPPDA, they have standard. Everything has been standardized. So in construction, because it's your building, you go to court, your building will get stuck for 10 years. Meanwhile, you have a loan, you have this, but meanwhile, you're disputing with your contractor over material. He's saying, I brought 100 bags of cement. You're saying, no. The supervisor is saying, you brought that. You're telling him, I'm not going to pay you again until we solve this cement issue. So because you're not agreeing, then you're like, let's go and file in the court. You line up with the rest of everyone. All the backlog and issues. Just that cement issue takes you 5 years. Meanwhile,
that is not worth, that's not worth.
So in construction, they have their standards. Once you have that thing, they get an engineer to come, whatever is, whether it's an engineering thing, a design thing, they'll come. If you know they have dispute tribunal board, you set up a board immediately, they try to resolve. If not, you go for arbitration. But the principle is that work must go on. So even as we go on through these things, work is still going. You just get that issue separated from everything, which is not with mainstream. With mainstream, they'll say maintain the status quo. Maintain.
Now, someone who has handled this for some time, do you feel like it's Ugandan culture not to pay debt? Do you feel like we're that kind of people?
Statistically, they are saying yes, that's why our loans are very expensive. Did you wonder why our loans are very expensive?
Yeah.
We are not a credit-worthy society.
Okay.
Actually checking it. It's for those things that I've told you.
Yeah.
The discipline, the planning, the accountability, the transparency.
People just get the money with the end goal.
Like encultured in us. Unfortunately, you get money. Like I always tell people, when you're borrowing money, think about that person who had banked his car 2 million that you have managed to borrow. It's not your money. It's not the bank's money. Return it. Don't even go to banks. You see, even in our society, Mark comes like, Asmahaney have a problem, bam, he takes it and like me by the days, I like to give. And I think sometimes people study and understand. People come to me a lot. But I'm telling you, out of 10 people that I pay, only 1 will return the money.
Oh. Personal
friends, one. So what I've learned to do, I have learned to lend because I always feel convicted and bad. If someone comes to me with a problem, I don't know. So you might come to me and say, I have a problem of 500,000. Don't be shocked when I give you what? 50K. 400K. I'm like, man, that's what. Because if you don't pay it, I won't be so.
Yeah.
And it has come through experience.
You've dealt with it.
And that's what the bank also does. They're like, okay, you want to borrow this money because you guys are high risk. I'm going to give it to you at 24% per annum. Yet ideally, Bank of Uganda is saying the central bank lending rate is 10%. If we are credit-worthy society, you'd be borrowing at 13%, 14%, but it takes you. Sometimes I saw the last rate I think was 27.
27, yes. Oh, it's crazy. Even
but now after
even here at work,
yeah,
just giving you advances or giving you loans, that's crazy. Like
because have you ever heard of employees who get loans and disappear from employment?
So many, I know. It's like a trick. You're like, never know. Let me just get a loan, and
you bishops. I remember there was someone who came to work with us at CNOOC, and the reason he came was he wanted to borrow money. So he did his probation period. The company confirmed him. He went and borrowed 40 million from the bank. Worked for another 2 months, never came back to work. I don't know. It's a mindset. I don't know. The sense of entitlement. I cannot pinpoint it.
People face to the happy endings of life,
but without putting in the effort and the work. So you realize why borrowing becomes very expensive.
Yeah.
You realize why people don't even have the trust for us to grow our equity market.
Yeah. No.
That people are investing because the transparency is not there. When you compare us to like the London Stock Exchange, the New York Stock Exchange, for them, stock exchange, people buying people's companies, I don't know what is so common here. I don't know what I can equate it to. Like today, I wake up in one.
Starting a business, people here start with businesses. Huh?
I just go to the stock market. I get a stockbroker. They tell me, oh, there's this company. It's listing a tech company. I need to even ask who is in it or what's the price per share? Maybe $2.5. Okay, get me 100,000 shares. I put in my money. I wait 3-4 years. I start earning a dividend. Clear cut.
Oh.
The equity market works here. You even be thinking,
that company,
you look at companies like the Capital Markets Authority, they're really struggling. They're not creditworthy. Look at all these tech companies that have come up with innovations around lending money to people on apps, on what? Don't even go far. MTN and its money. You know that thing? Borrowing. Not Momo.
No. Momo Cash.
It's Momo Cash. Yeah. Man, if they give you the statistics of how many people have borrowed money.
No, the things that came around from Momo Cash, those the financial things. They can't call you, they access your contact, they call your dad, they call who, they just frustrate you.
People have gotten money and
but
so it is a huge pain point in our society. Yet there is money. Banks, Stanbic Bank just shared their half-year performance, and their profit is in billions. Half-year.
Oh.
So there is money in the economy, but accessing it has become a problem. But it's something that has been building. So unless we come back to ourselves and now be more responsible, do what it takes. Do what it takes. Otherwise, the more we continue, next time they'll be telling you a bank will not lend you, they'll lend you at 30%, 35%. And for them, it's a business. They look at the risk. The higher the risk, the higher the interest rate.
Yeah. Definitely. All right, thank you. Now, that is from like the business side and the law side and the law side. Let's now talk about you. What is your mantra of life? How have you built yourself and positioned it? What are the things you believe in? Yeah, what's your core to life? Like, what's that motivation? What keeps you going, really? We could feed into like your history. Maybe you've been very humble from like a humble background, and that's Nakuyo.
Truly, Nakuyo.
Both like this is it, yeah.
Yes. All right, thank you for that. Well, my history, and I think I need to demystify this whole history because when people hear my name Asmahaney Saad, they're like, first of all, people think I'm male, which I understand. The first thing I always ask, are you Ugandan? That's the first question they ask me. You look Eritrean, or I don't know. They give me all these countries that I should belong to because of how I look. So whenever people talk about racial profiling, those things, I'm like, guys, I feel these things. I have been racially profiled in my own country, so I know what it means to be racially profiled. So yeah, but historically, I'm a second generation Ugandan.
What does that mean?
That means my grandfather.
Okay. I think I'm also second generation Ugandan.
Yeah, my grandfather migrated into Uganda from Yemen.
Okay.
Yeah, so he was half Yemen, half Somali. Migrated into Uganda, trader, very high business acumen. So he came in like a young man, I think in the 1920s or 1910s, that time when Arab trade and things like that was very popular. Yeah, so he settled. Finally, he moved the whole coast, came down, and there was a whole migration. So you'll find a lot of mixed race, Ugandans, Mbale, Soroti. So when you look at that route, yeah. So for me, my granddad finally settled in Kasese. So when you mention the name Saad in Kasese, it's very popular. So we have schools, we have hotels. Like he did a lot for community, for...
You're already on that generational wave already.
Not really, and I'll tell you why. And so that's how, he got into and settled. Did a lot of trade, the border trade, Congo, whatever. He was very enterprising. He set up the first grain mill in that whole western region. So people would bring in like their maize and he would mill it and give them flour. Which was magic. Yeah, so of course he assimilated, being a Muslim, married about 3 women. Specifically, my grandmother was a Mtoro, so he married from the Bukonjo tribe. And I think it was also bringing community, having people trust him as a business leader. So he married from within community. Yeah. Yeah, so then now my dad becomes first generation because he was born here. Yeah, so again, my dad, their whole family, they're about 15 plus. Yeah, so later on he meets my mom. My mom is also mixed race. My mom's background, her mom was from Comoro Islands. Sorry, that dad was from Comoro Islands, if you've heard from Comoro Islands.
Yeah.
And then the mom was from India. Yeah, so I'm really UN, United Nation. So I have, and that's just like the first generation, but even with my grandparents and great-great-parents, all of them on both sides, there's several races or several, yeah. So maybe that's why I'm big on the region, the world. Like my vision is always...
You just don't see.
Yeah.
I see. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
I think that makes a lot of sense because I look at myself and I just feel like I don't belong to one space. But yeah. Yeah, so I was actually, so then my dad, that was first generation. So I'm second generation because I was born here in Zambia Hospital. Yeah, we're rooted here, went to Buganda Road Primary School, went to Chibudi, yeah. And then, of course, because of our religion and culture and what, so the names, all of us have very interesting names. Mine have been Asmahaney. Asmahaney is more like, it's coined from Arabic, Swahili.
Yeah.
It comes from the word Samahani, like forgive.
Yes.
So my name means like forgiveness, peace. And actually, I really profess those things strangely or unstrangely. Yeah, Saad is my father's name. Yeah, so I grew up in a typical, Islam was not only just religion, but also culture because of the Arab.
Yeah.
And because of the interrelations and migration.
Are you still practicing?
No, I'm not.
You're born again now?
Yes, I am. So we grew up with the Swahili culture because of that integration. Yeah, but Swahili culture has a lot of Islam in it. It's really coined from the religion.
Yeah.
And our local language at home, our dialect was Swahili. So I'm very, 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 very humbled that we can have this podcast in Swahili. One-on-one.
Yeah.
Properly. And my Swahili, because of my family now, because of the whole coastal thing. So we have family planted around the whole coast. Mombasa, coming to Nairobi, Kenya, coming to Uganda. So growing up and during the time of instability, the late 80s and things like that, I was very young. We used to move between Kenya and Uganda. So I have family.
But now you're still doing business between Uganda and Kenya, right?
The law.
Yeah, the law.
So, because KTA is a regional.
Yeah.
So we have firms we work with all over the region.
Yeah.
So we have presence all over the region. So which says, some of these things follow you. It's true. Yeah. So yeah.
So what is like your mantra? How have you? What have you learned from life?
One thing life has taught me, my mantra in life, my philosophy in life is to keep learning. I am a learner.
I mean, that's a constant. Even if you don't learn.
I found it that there are people who just like sometimes.
That's so true. The people
who stop.
I agree. I agree. The people who give up and just like this. I agree.
So I have learned to humble myself to an extent that and to develop a learner's mind, you need to. It needs to
go down.
It needs an
ego has to go out.
Like even when I get new people in associates, interns, the first, even if they come to me, they're like, oh my God, I'm like, I'm looking forward to learning from you. In as much as for them, they see, oh my God, to quote Museveni, fountain of what? Knowledge of honor. I'm like, hey, wait here. I have so much to learn from you as well. You've just come fresh from school. There's some, and I actually mean it when I say it. I've also learned to spread my wings. I love the multidisciplinary aspect of how you do your life, career. So when I was in oil and gas, I got into projects by virtue of my role I was playing as a lawyer, but I was so intrigued by just, you have this one thing, but you have this you have engineers, you have surveyors, so I got so interested in projects. And later on, when I started, building myself, I actually educated myself. So I'm a project management professional. But at the same time, I'm still a lawyer. I do arbitrations.
Yeah.
Anything that's new, I'll take interest and I'll learn, and I'll really come with a learner's mind. Like Biemani Milo and what being part of businesses and part of corporate companies. I used to sit in executive management meetings as the lawyer who sometimes they call to take me now. Sure. I tell you my dream would be, people look at you and think maybe you just dropped from heaven and you're Asmahaney, the one they see now. Call you like, you call her, come sit there. You're not supposed to say anything. But just for clarity, you hear people are talking about projections, balance sheets, I don't know what, the strategy. You don't understand them. So you're like, excuse me, what? I'm taking the minutes, but what does this mean? And then they look at you with this eye of, like you don't know strategy. You don't know predictions. You don't know budgets. Because law school, no one teaches you this thing. But it challenged me. And at the time when I wanted to do my master's, I really struggled. Everyone was telling me, do a master's in law, maybe do a master's in oil and gas. I went for a master's in business administration. Because I just felt so challenged. I wanted to understand these companies, accounting, what, ledger. Someone's talking about, today's ledger, you're just there. Meanwhile, we're thinking, excuse me, what does ledger mean?
You're almost about asking for that spelling.
So it helped me a lot. So from there, the lesson I learned was never be afraid, first of all, to ask. But also, if you see something has pulled, you feel, learn it. And today, I'm a big fan of Coursera. If you know that there's an it's not even an app. It's like Coursera. They have courses.
It's like a course
thing. It's like a learning how.
Been there for Python.
You can do free ones, but it costs as little as $49 to get on it. So I love Coursera. Now I'm educating a lot myself about climate change, about this whole hullabaloo of carbon credits and things like that, and I'm loving it. So for me, when I say that much, in what?
In climate change.
I do. I mean, I used to be one of those things. Watch Trump planted a bad seed in me those days. I'll be like, But now, honestly, look at the climate.
Man, it's hot these days, even in just our country.
Sometimes I remember the floods. Some people will tell you like, those things are seasonal, but there are certain seasons that you used to experience. Yeah.
Now it's there's no plan.
Just look at Europe, where those people have extreme weather. Winter. Yeah. Recently I went to South Africa, and we got there, it was their winter season. Now, when they told me winter and being in Africa, I didn't envisage it to be winter. So I was just like, yeah, man. Those guys, they told us, actually, when we came in, the winter season was ending. But
it was crazy.
It had been 12 years before it snowed. It actually snowed for 3 days. They had never seen it. How do you explain that? Okay. And this winter, I'm telling you, it was of winter. Me, I went with Bible summer clothes, I was literally cold, freezing. And they're like, this is not our usual temperature. So in as much as there's, I think there is something happening. Okay. And for me as a believer, when I read the Bible, I see there's a pattern. You see, you can map the pattern.
How do you understand God?
I understand God. God.
What does God mean to you, really?
To me, it means, he means to me as a father. I've come to understand him to be a father, to be a person who
creates. In this case, father, provider, right?
Father, creator, provider. So to me, God is more relational. It's just like your earthly father.
Yeah.
If you don't intentionally relate with them, especially now that you grow up and you will miss out and you'll just be father by name. And for me, that relationship has to be a very deep relationship, because I always use an example of a manufacturer and a man, right? The only person who understands their product is the person who manufactured it. So if you want to understand that product, you have to go to that man.
Yeah.
Even when you get phones, I mean, some of us, when you buy phones, you don't even read the manual. You just, does it receive a call? Then someone tells you, see this iPhone, oh, it can do this.
Then you see a career that is showing you new tricks you've never seen or never.
You didn't educate yourself. Now, for me, I have come to believe, and the more I walk that journey, it's what has really brought me out of where I was. Just that relation, knowing that, okay, there's a place I can go to and ask questions and try to understand, why was I created? You can ask your manufacturer, why did you create me as a fridge? So I will, and every time, so it's relational. I know I can go to a place and say, why am I facing this season? What am I? So of course, then the Bible becomes very, very active, very, very relevant. And the more you read it, now like this climate change and things, those things were there before now.
Yeah, we used to have floods, we used to have that.
But it came from destruction of man.
So do you feel like it's about that time now?
No, we
have done so much bad.
We have done so much. Generally, human beings were human beings. This earth was given to us. It is us. Maybe we don't realize it. We will not destroy it to the end. We might misuse. We are mismanaging. But all the time these things happen, God raises up people. The solutions are always there.
What's your end goal with believing in God? What do you look at? Do you want to live ever after in the afterlife?
Yeah, I believe so much in that, the eternity.
Do you believe it's worth believing in, to believe in the afterlife? Do you want me to live my life thinking of another better life?
Yeah, because then it makes life not worth living. Because everything you can think about this life, it's already there. Like you're living a life, sometimes it becomes like routine. Sometimes, that time I was having a very interesting interaction or debate, whatever I don't want to call it, and we're talking about the aspect of suffering.
Which is a constant, right?
Does God want you to suffer?
Very much so.
Scriptures, there are these apostles when they were talking about the experience, and most of them talk a lot about suffering. I suffer in pride, I suffer in this and this. But for me, I don't think we were created to suffer. No one creates a product for it to not work or to be challenged. I cannot imagine people who do these iPhones, create these iPhones with the mind of let the iPhone not work. Let the iPhone fail. So it's either how you're going to use it. It's either how you're going to educate yourself of how can I get the best out of this iPhone, that it will actually work. So for me, I relate it the same way. Suffering, yes, it's inevitable because of sin and how the world is running, how we mismanage ourselves. But for me, I believe every time you feel like you're suffering, you're being challenged, it is a process. And most times you don't want to go through the process. Like personally, for me, I have experienced a lot of challenges, a lot of issues that sometimes you just want to give up on life. Right?
Yeah.
But once you get back to yourself and also having that relationship with God, you realize when you get out of that situation, and they always say, no situation is permanent, which is true. Baganda seteri chitagwa. You're not going to suffer forever. You're not going to go through that fire forever. That's why they call it going.
But life is really a concept of suffering. Like
how?
We suffer for the only reason because that is how we can explain things like happiness, right? You can only know that you're happy because you have suffered before. You can only know you've achieved because you've failed.
It's more.
It's not like suffering is going to be a constant. Like I feel like
it's not a constant. Like the way you're explaining it, it's like you suffer because. So it's like there's a two-way to it.
Sure.
So the notion that we are meant to suffer forever and ever until maybe we get a better life, it's not true. I personally don't think it. And then for me as a believer, I know that Christ gave his life. So that actually when I start following him and understand God through him, then the notion of suffering is not, it's not an end all be all. There will be what we call the crown or the result of the suffering. So it's not the whole journey that's you will suffer, the result will still be something out suffering. No. At least that's what I that's how I conceptualize it.
Okay. Again, with that analogy though, it brings up thinking that, the creator is a jealous creator. Do you believe that?
I mean, if I be jealous, we are made out of his image. If a man can be jealous, where did they pick that?
But the emotion, being jealous is not a good emotion. So what's the accountability to that my creator is not perfect?
It's not about being perfect.
You believe that God is perfect?
Yeah.
But he's jealous.
Yeah, he's a jealous.
That's a very, very bad thing. To be jealous is to be, because it's emotionally draining.
I think it's important context. When they say God is a jealous God, what is the context of that? Context in this instance is very important because some people pick out a few things and they want to, create certain notions out of those things. But if you want to understand something, there's always full context to it.
Sure.
So again, what is the context when you say God is a jealous God?
I mean,
what is the context?
It was a battle of go through the devil down to what the devil, according to my understanding of spirituality, is the devil rules earth, right? That just means that we have someone who got mad and then decided to punish all of us for it. For someone's, if my dad did that to me, if my dad was getting mad at the mistakes I make and then punish all my siblings, I would feel bad about it. Yeah, I would not be happy about my dad. So that makes me unhappy about God. Much as I'm a believer, I still feel like this concept here, something is not giving. Yeah.
No, like I said, but you can't have the full context. So
yeah, but this context is just from the story, right? Satan tries to be like God. God gets mad, throws him to earth, gets him out of heaven as one of his angels. I don't know how true it is really. Feels like it's a myth.
Yeah, but you see, with and that's why they call it spiritual thing. It's not something tangible, but I think to be there without the hope and the faith and the belief, personally, for me, I think it just makes you more empty.
True. I believe that.
If you have no belief in anything. For me, when I look at the context of the fall, even when the fall happened, there was already a solution to it. In as much as that story shows us that, yes. And it's also a story that is very, very relevant to life. Every choice we make has a consequence. Every choice we make in life has a consequence. Take it or leave it.
True.
Even the fact that you're indecisive, it has. it has a consequence. So even the ability not to make a decision has consequences. So the fact that the devil, as we know it, made a choice, there was a consequence. He had to leave the presence of God because God expects obedience from all the creatures that he creates, like any person who creates, right?
Yeah.
But the beauty for me, the way I see it, is that there was a solution. Now, for me, because I'm so solution oriented,
that works well.
I connect and I see the solution happening. But even before the solution happened, you still have to walk that journey, that process.
What's the solution?
The solution was Christ. And for me, when I read now the story of how the second covenant comes in with Christ, and him now who came to take away all the wrong that was done, the sin, the suffering, all this, for me now that's the solution. So if I want to live my life with hope, I have to look there. Because then it makes a lot of sense. Now, as I look here, then it now makes a lot of sense to the Father. And that's why God tells us, you cannot come to me without going to Christ. Because when you look at me alone, it's those things you'll say, oh God, you're mean, how could I be punished? But there was a solution.
I see that.
And so the mind of God, and because we are created in his image, it's always that. There is no suffering out there that doesn't have a solution.
How have you built your strength and spirituality this big to now, like over the years? Like, what have you done to get there?
Interesting. Well, I got born again in 2016.
Do you feel like that? For someone with a Muslim background, how did you?
It was very difficult. Persecution. I felt a lot of things. Persecution up to now, of course. I come from a very, like I said, very big family, friends, all these things. It just makes them very uncomfortable. Also the fact that because I come from this Arab culture, which formulates the religion, in Islam, if you know or don't know, when someone converts, they're supposed to be killed. They do what they call a fatwa. I think you've heard of those things.
Yeah. I've heard about that.
You pronounce.
Yes.
They are
one dua for death. Yes, I've heard about that so many times. Yeah, that's the only one thing.
So at that time, I had these pronouncements made over me, the fatwas from some of the family members. How? Of course, it's such a, and for me that I'm telling you, when I tell you my Jenfood day, the fires I faced, but for me, and like I tell you, for me, I'm someone, I walk a journey. I'm not a believer in shortcuts and things like that. So for me, by the time I made that decision, I had a lot that was working in this mind. And for me, my mind is one of the gifts that God gave me. And I've come to realize, those days I used to question. Growing up, I was the child who, even if you told, do this, but why? Questioning, but why? I see it in one of my children now, and I love it because I'm challenged all the time. But because religion is more of cut and paste, one size fits all, when you ask a lot of questions, especially people come from religious background.
That's the thing with me because
but they'll tell you don't question. So I came up with that thing whenever I would ask, why do we do this? Why do I have to cover myself? How comes you men don't cover yourself? Why do I do this? And it was always like you're anti. There is maybe like a demon in you when you ask questions. But when I started my journey, and it was really through friends, I could see there was something different about them. I could see, you could sense. And at that place where I was, I think I'd reached my bottom. Because I said, God, Christ came for the broken, to heal the broken, the wounded. I was broken at that point. I was really broken. So I think it takes you to get to that level for you now to actually receive what you're supposed to, the solutions that are there. So in my, like I started seeing these things, like we were going through certain, like your peers, you're going through the certain challenges, but the way they were handling them, the faith that they had, they're always praying. Let's go and pray about this. Islam there was prayer, but for me prayer was more of, how can I call it? Routine.
The 5 times you have to do them for the sake of doing them.
And sometimes I could just do it because I have to do it, but I didn't feel the connection. So that's how my journey. So I started reading, I started educating myself, and I felt answers
coming.
The biggest answer for me, I'll tell you, the biggest answer for me was identity and purpose. At that time, one of the biggest struggles I had in life was identity. One, like I said, because of my name, who I am, how I look.
Yeah.
I was going through a lot of racial profiling. Like I'll tell people and probably like, over like which district or Uganda, I'll be Kasese, people from Kasese don't look like you. So you feel like you don't belong. In this society that the way Uganda is shaped, you have to belong to someone. Or what's your clan? I don't have those things. And then also the fact that my family was going through a lot at that time. So we were so also that connectivity. Yeah. So that was one of the biggest battles. Like I would just hide. Like I wouldn't even want to stand in public and say my name or say who I am because I didn't even have a clear definition. The other thing for me is purpose. I knew deep down in my heart.
Have you realized that?
The purpose?
Yeah, your sense of purpose. No.
I have a sense of purpose. And like I keep saying, purpose is not fixed. And I like how you said you sense.
Yeah.
It's something you sense, it's something you feel, and it's something that you walk towards. And actually the path of purpose so just starts shaping themselves. So you see when there's connectivity in terms of opportunities that come your way. Yeah, so like the identity issue, it was an actual crisis and a burden in my heart. And purpose, like I said, purpose is it's not cast in stone, but the sense of it. Now for me, I know. Now I sense my purpose is in leadership. I have a very big role I have to play in governance. I have a purpose in service. Serving, I get so much fulfillment in service. So with whatever facets it comes with, either it's church service or work service or coming here to share information, mentorship, whatever it is, I do it. Like I showed my LC community, it's service, and I have a purpose there because I found that the biggest reach that I have is always through service. The mentorship, you put up, or people just come to listen. It's like, when would I ever have reached those people if I was like, if you want me to come, pay me, this is my fees. But I do it, you don't even have to pay me. Like it sits into my heart. The governance, we've talked about it. Like it's like an actual pain point in my life.
Yeah, I see.
Leadership, it just comes naturally.
Okay. The last bit of this whole conversation is, what legacy are you trying to create, or do you want to leave behind?
That question is, how do you want to be remembered?
Yes, that's the question.
The legacy, I want to be remembered as someone who, first of all, lived a very, very authentic life. I want people to say of me that every time they experienced me, in whatever form or way, they experience the best version of me.
I agree. This conversation, I feel like
I really
connect with
you.
Wow.
So that's already legacy.
Yes. I agree with you on that.
So I'm happy that feedback has come because, even in my mentorship program, sometimes I talk and I just let go of myself, and the feedback that you get, the lives that you touch. Because, like I said, people see you, Asmahaney, she's on boards, she's on Twitter, and they think, oh my God, this chick has made it. She has never experienced what I've gone through. Her life is perfect. Okay. There's nothing like perfection. I have my flaw. I have my weaknesses. I have things I'm struggling with, even up to now. I have my fears. But the question is, now that I have them, can I be true enough to share them? And for those that have managed to overcome, how I've overcome them. People don't want to talk about this. So that's one thing I really want. I feel for me, if I had a room on my funeral and people, at least even half the room says that's about me, I will rest in peace. Because it's something I'm really driving towards. That's one. That people experienced a very, very authentic version. How I touched lives, I mean, I have this need of maybe philanthropy, doing something, but I've come to realize, okay, even what I do, as long as you're touching and changing a life, for me, what matters. Then the other way I want to be remembered is the impact that I've had, the small things I do. They're still small because maybe I don't have the capacity, but even if it's educating someone, walking someone a journey, in my family, how I've impacted them, my children, the things they'll talk about me, So again, the impact bit of it,
It's very important.
How have I impacted you? So most times when I meet an interview, it's never perfect.
Yeah.
There's some people who will tell you that chick is a bit BITCH. I don't know. Because I'm very authentic. If it's time to work, it's time to work. If it's time to play, it's time to play. Yeah. So again, of
you're
course,
molded with like some sense of principle, right?
Yeah. So there are people I'm sure who have maybe experienced them, but I give myself grace. I'm only human, but at least that is it might never be 100%. I love this tangible number, but even if it's 50% of people in the room, I will rest in peace. Then of course the impact, yeah. And then lastly, and I don't want to be political because I don't have ambitions in politics, but if I ever had a chance to serve my country, not politically.
Yeah, you could become a business noogie, right?
Yeah, but at that wide scale, just be able, in whatever facet, whether it's business, whether it's governance, but to be able to contribute significantly and see the actual impact. Whether it's writing a law, with something like that, I keep praying and hoping that that opportunity would come. So for me, that is my simple legacy. That.
Man, thank you for this. Really, this has been one of the toughest conversations I've had.
Oh wow!
Really, thank you.
And you gave me the feedback that so you'll be like part of the 50% in the room. I hope.
I will. I want these guys to go, but I'll call you some time. We have another conversation, probably on marriage and so many other things. But thank you so much.
Thank you too for having me.